Hello, hello. I have an important announcement to make. I've bought some new tea. Some cinnamon, thyme, and what's it called in English again? Girofle. It's the thing you can put in like oranges and stuff. Cloves. There we go. Cinnamon, thyme, and cloves. Look at this. It's got 2 beavers. Amazing. Well, I don't really know what I'm gonna talk about. Just wanted to actually stream today. Especially since I'm gonna be let me chill for myself. Alright, how do I... What's gonna be the chill phrase here? Oh damn, the red light from my laptop. That's a cool effect. I got the RGB lightings up in here. Okay, nom nom nom. Oh yeah, and I have a crown for the king. Gotta wear it. Alright. What are we gonna do? I guess I could continue the... First I'm gonna enjoy this new tea. God, this smells good. Thank you. I won it. Another one. Eating the king's cake. I'm slacking, more JC practice. Oh yeah, I actually was thinking of playing a bit of Heroes, but I have to leave at 8:30. I don't know if I have time. Well, I do have time. Yeah, we can do some Heroes. But yeah, I got well, it's almost eaten, but I got a bit more of the king's cake. Yeah, the laptop. I actually just noticed that I have like gamer RGB lighting now in my room from the laptop. It's my streaming PC. Got the NDI set up and everything. I got a fucking god biome this morning, but I had shitty heroes in tavern. Well, rip. I kind of wanted to just like chill and talk, but then show off my new tea. I went shopping this morning. Got this cinnamon, thyme, and cloves, and 2 beavers, but they're not in the tea. They're just beavers, but they're cute. Herbal teas. Herbal teas are good. What? Why is that a Peppo ban? God, this smells good. I got a bunch of other ones. Let me show them off. Got some chai tea, because I like the spices in it. I want some caffeinated tea. Got some red herbal infusion. So this is fraise is strawberry, fleur de sureau. I have no idea what that is in English. It's a common herb. Let me just check. Whoa. Chill. That is elderflower. Ooh. That sounds like that sounds like some Lord of the Rings plant. This actually cures what are they called again? The when Frodo gets stabbed with the magic knife, and he needs that like special herb to get cured. Then I got a lemon, ginger, and black pepper herbal tea. I love ginger infusions in general. And verveine. Wait, what is that? Verveine, verbena. It was King's Foil. Yeah, King's Foil. Okay, so I got some King's Foil tea here. Sounds like you need another Lord of the Rings marathon, yeah. And got some verbena here. Another double beavers. I showed you my beaver. Please respond. My beavers, plural. Yeah. Well, look, it's the return of the king. You can't hate on me. I have 2 crowns now. Anyone want one? I could like. God, it keeps falling down. It's not very well adapted to the to wearing headphones. They should look into that. I'm sure there's a market for this. I could put another one on top. I am the king of 2 realms. Fuck. This one keeps falling apart too. Doesn't inspire confidence in the people. For the people. There we go. Got all the crowns. I think I prefer the new one. It feels nicer. Alright, is this tea ready? Smells good, but it feels like it will burn the shit out of my mouth if I try right now. Yeah. How's everyone doing? Going shopping in the morning, I'm gonna make like the Neat Life diary. Going shopping in the morning at like 9-10 a.m. is so nice. No one's there. Everything is fully stocked. They haven't run out of anything, and like you don't have to wait for anything to like buy it. Just walk up and give money and go. Though I actually do the like pay with an app and stuff, but it's still really nice. There's way less people. Though the people who are there, they're at some moment I passed this old dude who was like, there was just like a bunch of people in a tight corridor like passing each other, and that guy like passed and he was like grumbling, "Oh, this is worse than the périphérique," which is the I forgot this. So someone told me in an earlier stream how it's called in English. The peripheral highway that's around the city. So, yeah. Old people, old grumbly people energy. PogChamp. Train building a school in Africa? What? I'm clicking your links, Winter. Oh, I need to pause champ the music. Also, give it some volume.
Watching their streamers that, you know, they want to watch for the maximum content. So this is like core community type shit. So I'll say it. Devin Nash and I, it's going to happen around, and, you know, I'll share whatever video with you guys. Devin Nash and I, on my 31st birthday, so December of the end of the year, we're actually building a school together in Africa. Isn't that kind of cool? We're building and like sponsoring a school, its teachers, everything, and watching their stream.
That is kind of cool. Though, to be honest, I know someone streamed it at some point, and I watched it. It was amazing. The mole. It reminds me of the mole when the dude's like buying an island in Africa and he officially it's supposed to they pretend, well, not officially they it's supposed to be like a tourism resort, but then to the local people they're going to evict, they're telling them they're going to build them a hospital. So that's where it reminds me of it. And then what they're actually building is an illegal drugs and weapons facility. So, but yeah, obviously, maybe not. That's not that obvious, but I doubt. There's no reason to believe Devon and Train are looking to build an illegal drugs and weapons factory in Africa under the guise of a school. That would be insane. Maybe if I start some shit, I'll become famous. That'll be my claim to fame. African school drama. Seriously, it's a cool thing. It is a bit weird. If I had to say something about it, it's nothing like against them, but it always makes me feel weird how like doing good things for people in modern capitalist society depends on individual people's decisions. Well, not entirely. That's not true either. There's like state sponsored aid and stuff. So kind of random, no? Well, and it could be elsewhere in the world where they need schools, but as far as I know, they do still need schools in Africa. They can use the help. I mean, Devon and Train seem to be very successful and rich people, but I can't see them like actually building a school is going to be a big investment already. No matter how affluent they are. I just smell tax write-off when I see things like that. I know there's good intent, but they're with the school, for example. Maybe, but I don't think there's anything wrong in having tax write-offs for those kinds of things. I genuinely think that's good. Because like people with good intentions will do it anyways, but then you get people like neutral or just like who want to optimize their taxes and are like, hey, if I build a school in Africa and assuming it's a tax write-off, I know nothing about how taxes work in the US for those kinds of things. Assuming it's a tax write-off, like, do you want your taxes to go to sponsoring like the military-industrial complex for what's the percentage of the budget that goes into that in the U.S. U.S. military spending proportion, like percent of taxes. There we go. 54% of all federal discretionary spending. So, like, for me personally, of course it depends on your personal convictions, but for me personally, I would 100% prefer, like, my money to go 100% to help. 100% to helping other people than 54% reinforcing the military. Yeah, like that one dude who donated a shit ton to climate change a couple of years ago. Yeah, and in general, it's something. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine to see like how the communication around issues like climate change, pollution, the issues behind vegetarianism and veganism is very centered on the individual. It's about making you feel, giving you the moral high ground, making you feel better than other people, which works for a lot of people. And I'm not saying it's like a good or a bad thing. I just don't know if it's the most effective way to go about. For me, it kind of annoys me. I'd rather, instead of, I read a post on Reddit today that like summed it up perfectly for me. Instead of having a minority of people perfectly handling their lives around those issues, we should have like everyone imperfectly, but doing a little bit towards those issues, and that'll be much more effective. Instead of having like 5-10% of the population be going like full on vegan, if instead we have 100% of the population consume less meat, that'll actually have a much bigger impact on our society, on how we treat animals, and on the pollution caused by those industries. I was like, cool, but it's so weird that we're relying on the decisions of certain people. Yeah, exactly. It is weird. Like, and then like I'm talking on the side of like normal everyday life people, and then yeah, when you look at like super rich people, we're like at the mercy of like when they feel concerned by this or that issue, to a certain extent. Like, what if, I don't know, what if Bill and Melinda Gates didn't give a shit about climate change and like sustainability in Africa, and then their money would go to other things, which maybe there would be good things too. I don't know, but it just becomes random. I mean, it's good that people are doing this. I just think they're, I'm just for like having like governments do things too. I'm one of the mean socialists. To a certain extent. I'm saying that in the American sense of the word, not in the in Europe I'm more of a liberal Democrat with socialist tendencies. I don't know. I suppose I use tax write-off loosely. I'm using finance instruments, charitable donations, LLCs, and trusts to reduce your tax bills. Yeah, I assume that's what she meant for sure. I mean, that's great. Like I was saying, if you disagree with especially if you disagree with how the government is going to spend your money, spending it, choosing how how to spend it through NGOs is a great way to empower people, I think. Oh, rich people, because poor people aren't gonna funnel money into NGOs and look at tax write-offs. They are in a way because it doesn't go to the state. Like Nehemiah says, if you don't agree with the spend, then it's a good thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, here in France, I know that to a certain limit, I don't remember what the limit is. I'm not anywhere close to reaching it. I get to write off. Contributions I make to NGOs. I have a. I'm signed up to. I give like €5 every month to Greenpeace, though. I'm thinking about canceling it because I disagree with how anti-nuclear they are. Like, it's great to criticize the nuclear energy, and there are things to criticize. Got to make sure it's implemented safely and carefully, and there need to be watchdogs for that. But they're just like ideologically against it. No, I don't feel like there's any more like rational thinking about it. It's like the classic sort of leftist anti-nuclear take, which I don't want to support. I want to support the rest, but not that. Oh, and also I think they supported that crazy sea dog guy who would like attack ships, and like I'm not for industrial fishing either, but endangering the lives of fishermen is maybe not. Maybe we don't need to go that far. At least I don't think we need to. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder how involved they are, though, because they in the clip. I guess we'll see when there's like more info out of Devon and Train. But what Train said there, they're like gonna contribute to building a school. I wonder how hands-on they're gonna be in that. Because that's also a big issue with caritative things. When the people giving the money aren't actually overseeing the work. Well, it's kind of like if your school building streams poggers. Well, that would work. It would be content for them, and it would help people. I think that would be great. And they could like go full memes with it, like every donation during the school during their like visit of the school building goes to the school and stuff like that. But what I mean is like it's like subcontracting work. If you're not overseeing the work, you're gonna end up with a shit show. You need to have people. You need to have people overseeing it actively, who actually care about the end result. Accountability, yeah, exactly. Like just throwing money somewhere and expecting it to work out great. It reminds me of like the debacle of when the U.S. subcontracted building hospitals in Iraq after the war, and they ended up with. Like the doctors move in and the hospital's already falling apart. The operating rooms got like mold in it. It was a huge shit show, and basically it was just there to steal the money from the Iraqi state's account. There was a great documentary about it, but I don't remember exactly. There's no way they wouldn't just contact an org that does this all the time, no? Probably. I have no idea. That's why I'm wondering about it. Like, I wonder how hands-on they want to be with it. Obviously, if they choose the right org, then it should be fine. It's got nothing to do with education, but I know Doctors Without Borders has a great reputation in the NGO world, where like most of the money you give them is actually going to helping people. It's not like some NGOs have this thing where like half the money you give them or more goes to marketing them, which supposedly the argument, and there is an argument for that, goes that the total money they get to help people is the net total is bigger, even though the percentage of the money offered going to help people is smaller. But ethically, it really does raise concerns. And then you look at like CEOs of, but that actually was a scandal with Doctors Without Borders. I remember some article complaining of the CEO's salary, but I don't remember the details. I shouldn't say that without like checking sources and stuff. Yeah, I imagine you have to pick the right org and funnel money to them. Trying to do it yourself seems like a train wreck. Yeah, that's true. You also definitely want like expertise in the matter, and definitely working with an org will give you like the local contacts. They'll know the local politicians, which if it's not a very democratic country, and or even if it is a democratic country, but with say an alternative approach to authority, you might need to know like part of the stuff you might need to know is like who to bribe to have your project to go through, stuff like that. Oh, Tally has an interesting link. Let's stop building schools. I was trying to see if schools are good, and to the extent this is true, it seems like it wants to be impactful. Interesting. Let's read this. I recently came across Taylor Conroy, who's using a new fundraising technique to let ordinary people raise $8,500 to build a school with just an evening's work. The method has been expanded to include water pumps and libraries. The fundraising is amazing, but I can't help slightly regretting the goal towards which Taylor has directed his considerable talents. Building a school is a motivating, tangible project, which seems to obviously be a good thing. They can send you pictures of it after it's built, according to Change Heroes. Each of these projects are incredibly needed and will change the world for the better. School building seems like one of the most popular projects in charity. There's a whole range of organizations that let you do it. Change Heroes uses Free to Children, but there's also Asante, Build a School, Build Africa, and not to mention all those gap year volunteer programs that let you travel to Africa to help out with construction. But is this really where we should be directing our efforts? Here's an alternative case. The most obvious benefit of building schools is to increase attendance, but it's unclear they even do that. Studies in Africa found that providing better quality, closer schools could increase average attendance by about 2 years, but were plagued by problems in the methodology. The best study on the topic showed that a major program of school construction in Indonesia led to 0.12 to 0.19 extra years in school per 1,000 kids. The study, however, considers several methods, and the method favored by GiveWell, which best allows us to isolate the impact of school construction, found a figure at the bottom of this range, which was too small to be statistically significant. Tally always has interesting links. Well, let's see. Let's dive through it. This makes sense when you consider that the existing schools have already been put in the best locations. Extra schools tend to be in remote areas where it wasn't worth building a school before. That's an interesting point. But alright, let's finish reading through it. I'll make a mental note, or maybe a literal note. Let's make a literal note. Even if you get kids into well-built schools in the developing world, there may be no benefits. Some studies have shown that an extra year of school attendance boosts income by 10%. These studies normally suffer with serious problems demonstrating causation, though there has been some promising progress more recently. Moreover, several large-scale studies show no or very small effects on countrywide GDP due to recent improvements in education. This suggests that the economic benefits of education are mainly at the expense of other people in the country. In other words, it only changes who gets the skilled jobs, not how many skilled jobs there are in the first place. Perhaps education has value in itself, independent of economic beliefs. Well, there doesn't seem to be any correlation between years in education and happiness either, once you've controlled for other factors. Education seems to primarily have value as a means to an end, unlike health and wealth, which do relate to happiness. These results sound incredible. How could education not make people more productive and happy? One problem is that, well, I want to quote Socrates quoted by Plato, where he's like, no one becomes a philosopher to be happy. Anyways, one problem is that education in the developing world is often extremely poor. Teachers are absent all the time, the materials are poor, the lessons are aimed at the top student who they hope will go to university. Building schools without guaranteeing quality seems likely to have little impact. Absolutely, that kind of goes into what I'm saying about like needing supervision and people actually having a stake in it. It's very easy to fuck shit up, like to half-ass stuff and like have it look good and then give it up. Building schools without guaranteeing quality seems like... Unfortunately, we know little about how to guarantee quality teaching. True. Good teachers tend to have similar backgrounds to bad teachers, and methods that have worked in one area often fail in another. That actually reminds me of something... it's another field, but I think it's the same in pedagogy. People often oppose like different schools of psychological thought. Like there's the Freudian school, or like the more modern version of the Freudian school, the Lacanian school. You've got the Jungian school of thought. You've got behavioral psychology nowadays. That's like the modern approach. Then in an interview with Carl Jung, which I find great to like get some perspective on this, Carl Jung says, the interviewer asks him, "Oh, so what are your thoughts on your like feud with Freud and which method is best and so on and so forth?" Carl Jung tells him that basically BTFO is the interviewer, and anyone who thinks in terms of like you have to adhere to this school or that school. He says, well, for my patients, I find that the most adapted to them, for 1/3 of them, is the Freudian method, for another third of them is my Jungian method, and another third of them I need to improvise and adapt to to their specific needs. And I think that probably applies to teaching a class. You need to you can't just come in with this like box and expect every student to fit into it. It's up to you to, if you're as a good teacher, to put in the effort to understand what your students need and find like the acceptable baseline compromise and how to allocate your time to specifically teaching every kid in the right way, right? That's obviously idealistic, but we need to strive for ideals, don't we? So yeah, but definitely that makes it all the more difficult to identify a good teacher from a bad teacher. They'll use the same methods, except that the good teacher will use the methods in the correct situation and adapt them to their students. So from like a hawk's eye perspective, you're not going to make a difference. I mean, even a simple example is if you have kids with ADHD in your class, that massively changes how you can lecture. Definitely, yeah. Another likely factor is that extra education only has benefits when combined with other changes in the economy. If no jobs are being created that make use of the better educated students, then it makes sense that the economy won't grow. It could be that most developing world countries are currently not constrained by having enough educated workers, but something else. During certain special periods in the past, like the Green Revolution, increasing education has increased average wages. That's an interesting perspective, because we do, maybe this is a really privileged like bias we have from living in first world countries, where we think that, hey, if all those people get better education, they'll like, even if the jobs don't exist, they'll like invent them, they'll be entrepreneurs, they'll be more creative and have the intellectual means to bring that creativity to life and create jobs. But it's not that easy. The countries lack infrastructure. The countries lack, well, infrastructure in many ways. It'll be hard for them to find stable funding. It'll be hard for them to find the factories and the machinery to bring their creations to life. They won't even know necessarily where to start with that. We're standing on shoulders of giants. Yeah. So that's an interesting perspective. It does feel then that it's kind of like a catch-22. But then you have to break the cycle at some point. Like, obviously only giving schools isn't going to fix it, but improving education and bringing... I don't know. I think in the long term, improving education is gonna help, right? It it should give people like a higher stake in society, and more stable society will be more interesting to investors. And that in turn will create jobs. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Anyways, I'll finish reading. This is not to say that we shouldn't try to improve education in the developing world. Rather, we need to do more research into the interventions that actually have benefits, and we shouldn't expect merely building schools, yeah, of course, without these other changes to help. Some of the charities listed do seek to provide an entire package of development, I'll show you my package, improvements in a small area, though they can't change government policy or create opportunities for better educated kids in the cities. These holistic approaches make more sense, but suffer from a lack of quality impact data. We can't assess that what would have happened without the intervention or separate causation from correlation. They also involve considerable additional costs. One bright spot is that there is evidence that getting kids in school, especially women, improves health. In particular, it can cause a significant reduction in infant mortality, though we don't have evidence that it improves health more effectively than providing malaria nets and deworming. If you want to get kids into school, well then the obvious remark is that you want both, right? You want malaria nets and deworming and access to the basic healthcare needed. That said, their charity link looks like it died. Rip. And if you also educate people better, then you'll also improve the health on those two aspects. So you improve it doubly. I doubt the way that education improves health is the same, in exactly this, overlaps exactly with malaria and deworming. Maybe a bit, in that you're like more careful about boiling water before you consume it, and like understanding what is sanitary, what is unsanitary. In that way it overlaps, maybe, but as far as like, I mean, since they specifically cited women, I imagine a big impact there is on women's like body education, which that isn't particularly impacted by malaria and deworming, to my knowledge. If you want to get kids into school, there are much better ways to do it. It's less sexy, but one study showed that simply telling parents about the benefits of education can get an extra kid into school for a year for only $5, I imagine, is supposed to be the sentence. That figure is likely an underestimate of what it would actually cost to implement such a program, but it's roughly right. But if it's roughly right, it means that $8,500 would be enough to ensure that 350 children receive full primary school educations. I'm still waiting for details from Free the Children about how many children would be affected by this much money spent on school building. 4 studies have shown that providing deworming medicine can cause a child to spend an extra year in school for an average of only $7. That's interesting. That does correspond to studies on length of education in our own like first world countries. When you have people in precarious living conditions, they're not going to be concerned by going to university or and things. You need to ensure baseline conditions are met. And I think many people who dropped out of high school or university in the US or in Europe can relate to that. They had probably not necessarily the most stable family life, not necessarily the most stable socioeconomic background, and that plays a huge part. Deworming is definitely not sexy. Well, speak for yourself. I like to deworm every week. But it's also an extremely effective health intervention with large room for funding that's well worth doing anyway. GiveWell's second highest recommended charity distributes deworming medicine. It might be that just providing free breakfasts at existing schools could raise attendance about 30%. Free food? That's a great idea. The Copenhagen Consensus makes a strong case that encouraging more demand for schooling is currently a much better intervention than increasing supply by building schools. First, the demand-side interventions just mentioned are cheap, effective, and proven, but there are other reasons to expect them to work better. One factor is that if demand is strong, then in some cases the local government will step in and supply the school. But more importantly, building a school involves a large upfront cost with a long payback, and if teacher quality is low or the students don't come, then years down the line we'll find that the money has been wasted. Demand-side interventions take effect immediately, so can be adjusted if not working. Some methods like free breakfasts or scholarships are only paid out if the student attends. The benefits of education are much smaller if the student doesn't learn to read and write, which normally takes about 5 years. Dropouts partway through education are common. Demand-side interventions can be targeted at areas where kids are already in school and help them to stay the course. Helping kids to get an extra year or two of education can often make all the difference. Of course, demand-side interventions are only going to work if there's enough schools around in the first place, but the positive results of these trials show that there are currently plenty of areas in which there are. In the future, we might need to switch back to building schools. If we keep monitoring our impact, we'll know when the then needs to be. Taylor's new ways of to inspire people to give in a fulfilling way have huge potential to make people in the developing world better off. But rather than send the money to programs that might do no good at all, let's focus on those where we have evidence they work. Now let's do much more research, getting a clear idea of the benefits of education and how we can best bring them about. The challenge for fundraisers like Taylor is to get people excited about the unsexy and less tangible products that often makes the most difference. Yeah, this reminds me of the classic conundrum in ecological fundraising, where like you can get a shit ton of money given to save pandas and like cute animals, but try to find money to save like some yucky insects that are just as important, maybe even more important for the like biosystem. But no one wants to save like what are those called? Like the huge I forgot their name in English. Let's see, mille pattes en anglais. Oh yeah, centipedes. I'm sure somewhere there has to be a kind of centipede that's endangered. Do you want to give money to save this little cutie? Oh no. Oh no, the poor rat. I'm sorry. Okay. Jesus, those guys are savage. There was a Congress dude who was like, I voted yes on this bill because I wanted to save tigers, but you're putting money into trees. Yeah, and like, dude, saving their fucking habitat is gonna save more tigers than putting them into fucking zoos. Yeah. Gee, look at this cutie. Don't you want to wake up next to this dude and oh wait, my camera's on top of him. Oops. Don't you want to wake up next to this cutie in bed? Look at him. Those loving eyes. Yeah, the U.S. has a race section on all job and college applications. It's probably one of the weirdest things to see coming from a European perspective. And I know there are definitely big issues with the colorblind perspective, but I really think that but yeah, putting race down on job applications seems insane. What's with the king crown? I won it in fair game by I bought myself another little another king's. Another little king's pie. I got a little slice, a big slice left here, and I found the little ceramic thingy in it. Good morning, Roserg. Treat yourself. Yeah, I buy that. I eat that shit like during the entire month of December and January. I love it. It's basically full of. It's not exactly marzipan. It's some like it's like sweet almond paste, and then the like crust all around it. It's amazing. Very simple, but very amazing. And then obviously a little thingy to break your teeth on. Am I still alive? Yes, you are. I haven't played more Meme World since last time. All right. I took a note earlier in the article because what was it? Schools in remote areas are inefficient. Yeah. Crap. I was thinking about something when I was reading the article earlier. Oh yeah, there's this interesting issue that's kind of a catch-22 in France that this makes me think of. Obviously, it depends on the specific socioeconomic and geographic characteristics of every specific town and village and country. But in France has during the 20th century has been affected by a very strong, like most developed countries, a very strong exodus from rural to urban areas. But also, unlike Germany, where the urbanization is basically spread out through most big cities, in France it's centered on Paris. Paris to a problematic level where almost all French institutions are centered on Paris, and all those other big cities have big problems developing, especially when they're too close to Paris. They get dwarfed by the enormous influence Paris has. So, for example, Orleans, Rouen. Those are cities where, at this point, with the cost of real estate in Paris, you're going to actually have people live in those cities and commute to work in Paris. They're not actually contributing, except maybe with their taxes, to the economic and social development of their cities. They're still Parisians. That's how big the influence of Paris can be. And the reason I'm talking about this is that I wonder if there are places in developing countries where you get similar issues, where rural areas, and that's why I was saying this a catch-22, like a rural area where there's nothing to offer people is obviously going to have a much bigger exodus to the urban areas, which in turn gives no incentive to develop infrastructure in that rural area. And that's kind of what we're seeing in France, to the point where, kind of like in the US with the postal system, there's regular discussion of like how having the postal system continue to be maintained in areas where few people live. Let's go back to here. In areas where few people live, is run at a loss, which is okay because it's a government subsidized, government owned system in France at least. So our taxes make sure that people who live in like small bumfuck of nowhere village that still get postal services and other things they need. But then but it still causes problems. For example, it's very hard when you live in no man's land or in a small village. Access to healthcare has become a problem over the past 30-40 years in France. No highly qualified doctor wants to live in random places, even with tax incentives and other programs to help balance it out. There's just very little to be won unless you really want to like live that chill village or nature life, in which case you would go there anyways. So yeah, it's I think it's a tough one when it becomes like that, because like if you now start building infrastructure in those areas, then it's not going to be used because no one's there anymore. It's like this diagonal area in France, outside of like the big cities, is called the diagonal of emptiness in French geography class. Because like yeah, most of it is just empty outside of the big cities. Gehinhyo, do you also ban having photos on job applications? I'm pretty sure in France it's illegal to put your photo to have your photo on a job application, except for the very specific industries like modeling, acting. Those have the right to ask you for a book, a photo book, and photos and stuff. Or I guess like client, maybe client-facing jobs. I'm not sure about those. Oh, dead children? Dead children currency? What? Aw. I wanted to use dead children as currency. Really, I have my photo on my job application in Dansk. Okay. I'm not sure, I don't think you can ask for it, but it's still often expected, I think. I need to look it up before, okay, let me double check that one. France... Okay, so you can put a photo on your resume, but you don't have to, and except for specific jobs, they can't request it from you. Put your streams meme image on your CV. That's a great idea. Or I could just steal the Enda's picture. Assert dominance right away. Actually, make it multi-page. Have the first page just be a full-page printout of the dick stream. I wish that was illegal here. I don't want to put my picture on there. Yeah, I don't feel good about that. Dead children currency is just like saying it takes $500 to save a child's life. So if you spend $500 on anything, you kill the child. Oh, I see. Well, so every PlayStation 5 equals a child. Does your mic switch or something when you change scenes? Does it? Let me check. Oh. Oh. Oh crap. Okay. Yeah, I accidentally had the microphone doubled on the IRL scene. Let me fix that. Jeez, yeah, I had an extra audio input capture track. RIP. I set it up because to like test out stuff when with my sound card. It's supposed to be on this. There we go. Oh yeah, I'm full screen. Okay, now it should be fine. I kill a kid every month I pay rent. I do even better. I kill 2 kids. Beat me. In a video game. Poggies. Let's go. Let's go. Let's eat kids for dinner. Look, honestly, if those kids wanted to live, they should have just eaten their bootstraps. That's how we do it, okay? We go uphill both ways to work 80 hours in the factory while taking care of 3 children and doing a PhD before or after they pulled themselves up with them. Well, obviously you need to pull on them to eat them, so, you know, it's 2 in 1. Efficiency. That's a winner mindset, an entrepreneur mindset. You don't pull up your bootstraps, you don't eat your bootstraps, you do it at the same time. And then you Uberize it. You create a smartphone app for it. Dumb question? There are no dumb questions. I'm obviously not a doer. Well, you're here to learn. This is gonna be the future. Devin, I'm gonna replace Devin Nash. I'll be your only source for entrepreneur advice from my neat life perspective. Eat the bootstraps like spaghetti. Just slurp up and while pulling yourself up. Yeah. Oh, and while, yeah. Look. We can make a system. I know exactly. I'm gonna show it to you, and then I'm going to the patent office to patent this because I don't want you stealing my intellectual property. So you have like the pull-up bar thingy up here. You have like the pull-up bar here up here, and then your bootstraps. You like strap him over the bar, and then you into your mouth. So at the same time as you're doing your like cardio lifting sports thing, strengthening yourself, you're pulling up your bootstraps and you're eating. 3 in 1. Absolutely amazing. I think advice Neon is giving advice on how to hang yourself live on stream. No, this is not hanging yourself. What the fuck? This is a sports exercise, okay? Nearly spat tea. Don't spit your tea. Here, drink it. Let's make a guide for French salad on how to drink tea. So you got a cup. Wait, no, that's a cone. Got your cup here. And well, you tilt your cup into your mouth. Wait, no. And you pour it in. There you go. Need any more advice? All right. Today I learned. Yes, gotta make a Reddit post about it now. Free content, homie. All right. What are we doing? Do we continue educating ourselves? Are they? What kind of website is this? Key ideas. Guide to using your career to help solving the world's most pressing problems. I'm sure I'll solve a lot of problems by becoming a streamer. I don't need to read this, obviously. I'll just build a school with Train and Devon and solve all the problems. Good karma. It's just a podcast, I guess, which is why I was dubious, but they cited GiveWell, so I kept reading. Oh yeah, I've never heard about GiveWell. Let's oh yeah, I wanted to check out some of those sources actually. What? What is GiveWell? Their citations were weird. They only have 3. Yeah. Giving effectively. Oh, okay, interesting. So, yeah, so this is like an NGO about which NGOs you should contribute to. This is the meta NGO. Nice. Maybe later we need an NGO to ascertain which NGO judges NGOs most effectively. At some point we will need that. It will become important. Way too dank, yeah. More than 50,000 donors. $500 million. Oh, okay, so you give to GiveWell, but then GiveWell gives to the... like optimizes its NGOs all the way down, yeah. Then GiveWell optimizes the money given for you. That's pretty cool. So you like don't have to think about it if you trust GiveWell, obviously. Cool. Google's mission is to find outstanding charities and to publish the full details of our analysis to help donors decide where to give. Our focus is on finding and reviewing the most outstanding charities possible rather than completing an in-depth investigation for each organization we consider. We identify top charities by assessing them along 4 criteria: the evidence of effectiveness, cost effectiveness, transparency, and room for more funding. Okay. And this is where they talk about school building, I see. Does Google take a cut? Yeah, let's see. So if you do, okay, so if you do like Google's maximum impact fund, how does this work? Google takes 0 fees and will apply its judgment to allocate the maximum impact funds among our recommended charities. Okay, so officially they take 0 fees. Now I have a good meme. What if you make an NGO and then you bribe the Givell people to prioritize you in their maximum effectiveness fund so you can pocket the money? That's some next level scamming. I should have been a career criminal. Probably not. Wait, what? I wanted the first source. There we go. Oh, it's the same article. Okay. Schooling and labor market consequences of school construction in Indonesia. Oh yeah, that's the one where they explain that higher education does not show... No, building schools does not give extra years in school, necessarily. See the Copenhagen Consensus Challenge paper on education. What was this one? Oh yeah, the income correlation with education. They do have more... Oh yeah, but those are dead. So they have 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 more citations that are dead, that aren't even listed on the website. Good job. Good job, 80,000 hours. You fucked that up. Get, here, have a little crab headbat for your troubles. No, I don't think those are dead, but they go up to the hyperlink in the article. Wait, really? If I click 6, 9, they don't go anywhere on the article. There's nothing. Yeah, I've been trying to click them, and it's just does nothing really. I like the way this stuff works in HTML. There should be yeah. Oh wait, they exist. They're just hidden. What the fuck? They exist in the... Look at this, they exist in the page's HTML. But they're set to display none. We've hacked the website. Look. I've revealed the secret references. Incredible. Okay, trade, globalization, economic development, and the importance of education as knowledge. Oh, those are like book references. Yeah, I don't know why I clicked them, they slightly moved my view. The references they didn't tell you about in school, yeah. Is this the WordPress site? Probably. What is like 90% of the internet is WordPress? Oops, wait, that was wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to click somewhere to reveal them. I doubt. Let's see, let me go back to that CSS rule. Yeah, no, there's no... You literally have to hack the site's CSS to see the references. Good job. Good job, 80,000 hours. Worms at work. Oh, you know what? You know what would be super fun to do with like streams? Like a big Worms Armageddon game. Nothing about this site seems well played. Nice one, Gahin Hiog. We should play some Worms Armageddon. I fucking love that game. Yeah, it's so weird. I was wondering if it was a toggle on the back end to show hide res. But like, why would that? Yeah, I understand your question, but like, why would anyone even do that on the back end? It would, like, I understand if it was like a drop-down thing here to like not make the references take up an entire screen's worth. Ugh. I actually, now I'm saying it, they probably wanted to do that, but they forgot to put it in, or there's like a dumb bug that prevents it. Oh, they're an org, not a podcast. Let's see. Oh, they're an org with bad web developers. 80,000 Hours is a London-based organization that conducts research on which careers have the largest positive social impact and provides career advice based on that research. The organization is a part of the Center for Effective Altruism. Oh, that reminds me. I've been trying to look up this article again. It wasn't a great article, but it was just like some random person's blog, but it was really well written. The idea was that you can see altruism. You can make an axis of altruism versus egoism. Altruism, egoism, and then intelligence versus stupidity. So the idea in that article was that once you have those four axes, you can judge any decisions made by people along those lines. And it's really simple, but it's pretty effective to try to think about like how people are acting. So an intelligent altruistic action. Let's go with red. An intelligent altruistic action is one where you lose some value. Let's say you lose. Okay, let's go with. Let's say X is the value you lose. No, let's go black again. X is the value you lose, which is smaller than Y, the value you've given to someone else. So even though you've lost something of your own, whether it's your time, your money, whatever, the benefit it gives to someone else is much greater than what you lost. So it remains a net positive for society. An intelligent egoist act is one where you take from someone, but what you take is smaller than the benefit it has for you. A stupid egoist act is one where you take from someone, but what you've taken is of higher value for the person you've taken it from than for yourself. And a stupid altruistic act is one where Y is smaller than X. That is, you've given more value. You've given the value that was higher to you, that would have been better used for yourself than for another person. And I find this really interesting because when we tend to judge people's morals, we tend to only judge them on the axis of altruism versus egoism, and we never think, which is what those websites are trying to do. That's why I'm thinking of this, like 80,000 hours and the Give Will and so on and so forth. Those organizations are trying to think of not just doing the altruistic thing, but doing the intelligent altruistic thing, doing actions, accomplishing actions which which give them a net positive for the whole of society, not just a net positive for like the people you help, and then it's like not that effective for society. But also what's interesting to think is that maybe there, and that's a tough pill to swallow. TLDR, I want to feel good, not do good. Yeah, exactly. And then the tough pill to swallow is that maybe there are situations where taking from someone is actually ethically viable, because what you've taken from someone is a net positive for society if you include yourself in society. Once you make the sum total. So yes, you've taken from a person or people, but since you get more value out of it when you do an egoist intelligent act, you arguably actually improve society as a whole. Well, to the extent that's the idea of the welfare state, no? An altruistic intelligence? Exactly, yeah, I agree. That's the argument I always give when arguing over the welfare state with like Americans or like European conservatives. I'm happy to pay a lot of taxes, because those taxes help people, the people I live with, more effectively than anything else I can do. My man, yeah. I mean, it's not and to me it seems really simple. I take that almost like for granted, but yeah, I can see how it's a tough pill to swallow for some people. I understand that too. But like, and then further down the line, I can say that I'm still acting egotistically. I'm acting in my own self-interest. When there's less desperate people in the street, no one's gonna attack me. I'm safe in the street if I live in a welfare state that guarantees people aren't desperate, that gives opportunities to people, education, that gives them a stake in society. When you have something to lose, when you have a stake in society, you want society to be stable. You want to work with people. Yeah, I really don't like homeless encampments, so I want to build more houses. Yeah, exactly. I hate. And that's like a really egoist thing, but I think it's productive. And when you put it that way, I hate like walking out of the boulangerie, the bread store, and every time there's a homeless dude who's asking for €1 for a coffee. It's annoying, and it makes me feel bad. And that doesn't mean I want him to like be banned from being there. I want him to have a fulfilling life. To which you also have to like, homelessness is a weird thing, right? Because then a lot of homeless people, whether they started off there or not, their current situations end up being situations of drug addiction and or mental health issues. So at this point, they need a lot more help than just like finding them houses, right? Building shelters out of spite for the homeless. Exactly. I love it when people channel their negative emotions into positive things. Everyone can have, well, not everyone, that's not that easy, but like everyone can present publicly their happy thoughts, their altruism, their how good of a person they are. We're educated to be like that in society, to show off how amazing we are, how cool we are. Not everyone can take like their hatred, their disappointment with people, how like egotistical they are, how narcissistic they are, and channel that into something good. Or at least I think that's something we can work on collectively, because we all are gonna have our own demons. Deny them their identity by making them normies. Oh shit. Or sexual abuse, or being forced into working for drug dealers, i.e. homeless people. Yeah, true. Yeah, there's lots of traumatic experiences that go into that. Or like in the US, the Vietnam vets, a lot of them ending up being homeless. It's like, and it's all like tangled together. you start off maybe, like you're saying, maybe a situation of sexual abuse, and you run away from home, and then you end up with some like addictions, and then you're like 10 years down the line, and you also have mental issues, and it like spirals. At some point, it seems like it maybe spirals out of control. I don't know. I'm not actually qualified to talk too much about it, but what I've read seems to point towards that. They do, but there's a decent amount of research showing housing first is the cheapest option. Interesting. That's especially interesting since in like cities like Paris have a huge problems with housing. Where I don't remember the exact statistic. Let me look it up real quick. But there is a proportion of housing in Paris that is just unused. Wait, I should search for it in French. %17% of Parisian housing is unoccupied, from an article from 2019. And that is just within the walls of Paris. Proof that insults are a massive danger in mice. Female mice care for any mouse pups they encounter. Virgin male mice attack them. But Catherine Dulac discovered that without a pheromonal cue, the males act as caregivers too. Oh, maybe we should give hormone pills to to incels, and that'll fix it. Yeah, conflicts of bad situations is how I've heard it described, yeah. She also retweeted this with, "Can any lawyers check if the new Swedish pandemic law can be used for this?" Wait, what? Ah, jeez. There are 6 people in the house in Gatineau, Canada. A neighbor snitched, police went in, assaulting citizens. It kind of depends on the context, I guess, if it's like a party or stuff, but for 6 people that seems a like a huge overreaction to have like the police intervene. And I guess I would have to read in and see if they actually live together. I don't know. Let's look it up. Let's form an opinion about this random world event. Here's how the story was. Oh, it's in French. I can translate it for you. Warning: this link may be unsafe. Oh, it's okay. We got the JavaScript disabled. A grouping of 6 people in a residence in Gatineau gave way to a police intervention, which degenerated on New Year's Eve. Oh, so it was a party, a New Year's Eve party. I mean, if it is a party, then and parties are illegal because of the COVID laws, then yeah, it is what it is. I'm usually more of like libertarian. I hate that word because of what libertarian actually means. I like people having liberties, is rather what I would say, but COVID is an obviously exceptional situation that justifies restricting people's freedoms. And because of that, just say that you're French and you like to rebel against the state. There might be a bit of that, yeah. I don't know. I know some friends of mine did organize New Year's Eve parties. I didn't go to them. I didn't want to. It seems irresponsible to me. maybe if it had been like a chill dinner, like what we did for Christmas was like a nice little dinner with there was a lot of us, 10. Should have called the police on them like a responsible citizen. Maybe. I don't know. I'm okay with not having done that. Is stuff a better label than libertarian, at least in current internet timeline? Yeah, I'm not libertarian. I don't identify with what libertarian actually means. It's just I do identify with having more freedom than not. I guess is what I would say. The police always make things better. Yeah. Oh geez, there. Like a month and a half ago, there was a huge police brutality case. It's actually kind of related to the COVID laws. So it was during when it was like 2 months ago actually. During lockdown, you need like a specific paper to go out. So there was this music producer who came. He stepped out of the studio probably to smoke, or I don't know why, but he was like literally like just in front of the door, barely on the street, and a police car passed by. Oh, FYI, the guy's black. A police car passes by, and the police assault the guy, beat him like to the point where he's hospitalized. Calling him racial slurs, allegedly, according to his testimony. It's all caught on camera, which is good because obviously, once the police got back to their station, they faked reports saying that the guy assaulted them, justifying the violence, which the camera proved they did not. And it was like a huge shit show. At least the one thing that I have to grant. For once, isn't capturing the police on video illegal? Well, technically, the law, what the law says is that it's illegal to share video of the police that with the goal of harassing police officers or endangering them. The literal phrasing of the law is it's illegal to share video footage or photos of police officers with the goal of causing them a mental or bodily harm. That's the exact phrasing of the law, which is insane because there already is a French law against online harassment, and that law covers all of the use cases they have for this new law. So which makes us think, us, I mean the French people who are against this new law, which makes us think that what they actually want to do is a chilling effect and make it harder to justify filming police in protests, in situations where police are likely to, in arrests, in situations where police are likely to use police brutality. With the issue being that already before, there are many clips from protests where there's a particularly funny one. I don't know if I can find it for you. Gilets jaunes. So like one guy is filming. Okay, it's gonna be hard to find because there's like so many of those fucking videos. So it was during the Gilets jaunes manifestations. So one guy's filming. The guy filming the video is filming with his smartphone. You can tell from like how the video is done, and he's filming another guy like 5-6 meters away, another Gilets jaunes, filming something across the street with his smartphone. A police walks out with his baton, like slams the baton down on the other guy filming, like forcing the smartphone to smash down on the ground. And like 3 seconds later, the guy filming the guy getting hit by the baton you see the camera like tumble down, and he also got like basically he also got like hit by a police officer, dropped his camera, and you even see like then the camera is facing upwards, and then you see like from downwards the police officer like yelling at the guy like, "Oh, what are you doing? Fuck off! Stop filming! No, don't pick up your phone! Fuck off!" Does France have a large counter movement of diehard conservatives that are like the Blue Lives Matter people in the US? This sounds like that law was made to pander to those people. Yes, absolutely. Basically everyone between the right and the center included are strongly pro-police. The people who are who protest those laws are mostly either far right or far left. And I know the French political landscape is pretty complicated, mostly because there's like so many different parties because of the two-turn election system. There are many different flavors of politics. It isn't like in the US where you're like a Democrat or a Republican, and then maybe you're like a liberal neoconservative, like a capitalist neoconservative, more like centrist Republican, or like a liberal Democrat, more like centrist Democrat, and then farther down the spectrum you're like a progressive Democrat, or like a Christian fundamentalist or whatever. In France, you get a lot of different flavors to represent you. And which doesn't really end up mattering in the presidential elections, at least, because of how I got sucked into a dumb debate on Reddit with on the French subreddit with someone. Well, mostly because he was someone said something wrong on the internet, and I felt the need to correct him. But in the debate, he's mostly it's like veering into whether the French system is properly democratic or not. Specifically, the fact that a lot of people voted Macron not because they were for his policies, but they voted against the far right, like neo-fascist party. And the issue with that is that when you vote against someone, not for the person you're voting for, you don't want them to enact their policy willy-nilly, the same way as if you would have supported them. You want them to compromise and to be to take into account that people who voted for him don't actually support him, and I think that's where a lot of hatred comes towards Macron in France. It's kind of like, I know, I am pissed off at seeing Biden like already compromise with Republicans when he's appointing. Well, it's not necessarily compromising with Republicans; it's more like compromising with lobbyists. But when he's like appointing lobbyists to EPA seats and stuff like that, I feel like betrayed by that. But I do understand the logic in the sense that many centrists and Republicans voted Biden against Trump, not because they believe in Biden's like Democratic Party platform. So I guess in that sense, Biden is maybe acting in good faith towards his electorate, which is a good thing if you believe in the democratic process, which I do. And I wish Macron applied that in his approach, because he's 100% pandering to the right. The minister of Interior he appointed is basically like a right-wing hawk dude, very tough on crime, pro security, all that. You know the drill. Not really. I don't know. I like it when people have nuance. I like it when we don't follow ideologies, but we follow like the reality of things. which is easy to say. Obviously, determining what is that reality is tough. Okay, let's look at incel rats. I'm interested. I feel like when I was a teenager and I hung out on 4chan and I was frustrated with being a nerd and not having much contact with women and stuff like that, I feel like at some point there was a branching road in my life and I could have become an incel. I feel like what stopped me from becoming an incel was my parents gave me a really, really good and wholesome education. Dark name, mannen, yeah. Like, I got raised in a Buddhist family where compassion and understanding other people were values drilled into me, and since that stayed with me through adolescence, I don't think I could have really succumbed to it. But I definitely had to work through some like nice guy venom, internalized bullshit in my brain over the past 10 years. But what that gave me also is what I feel like a strong understanding of how people in those situations think. Like what kind of I want to figure out like a camera angle where it feels like I'm looking at you. Oh yeah, this could, I think this works. Yeah, now I'm looking straight into your soul. Because I know it's easy to hate incels because they say a lot of hateful things. But I like being able to understand like the depression and loneliness and suffering that it takes to push someone into that like very, very toxic place in their minds and their lives. And I feel like that's part of the compassion thing too. I didn't see you were streaming. Oh, not for that long. I have I'm meeting with someone this evening, but yeah, I'm streaming. I'm trying out becoming a just chatting streamer. I like it, you know. I like playing video games, and I will continue playing video games. But just like talking with people is actually really nice. Maybe it's the lockdown making me really lonely. Did you comment about the police thing? Yes, I did, but yeah, absolutely. We were talking about police brutality in France. Well, like recent events in police brutality in France, and how they related to. Because earlier there was that link to the party person getting evicted. Did the protests stop? No, but they've kind of died down. I actually was reading. Oh yeah, that's the article in the comments of which I end up like getting sucked into a debate with a random Frenchie on the French subreddit. I can show it. Don't brigade it, you 10 viewers. Let's see, reddit.com. Okay. Are France? What? Wait, I can't access the French subreddit? Oh, there. Smuggers. Okay. That's a good one. Because I've refused the cookies. Does my this is basically like, am I the asshole? I refused the cookies. Is my grandmother allowed to be angry at me all night? I just finished watching an anime called Serial Experimental Lane. That's one of the best anime ever. Yes, that anime, I highly, anyone who's watching this who hasn't seen Serial Experiments Lane, watch it. It's okay, trigger warning. First of all, suicide, mental illness, depression, loneliness, internet addiction, all of those things, very, very hardcore in Serial Experiments Lane. Yeah, internet addiction for sure, and all those other things I've quoted. I started watching it again with a friend a couple months ago. Though we stopped watching it, we need to pick it up again. And I remember being like, "Hey, I gotta warn you, I relate to Lane so much. Yeah, I know that feel, but that's not a good role model, maybe. But I know that feel." I warned him. I'm like, dude, episode, because I didn't remember exactly in what episode it was. Like episode 3, there's this really traumatic thing that happens, and then it happens at the end of episode 1, and we were like watching, and we like looked at each other and like, sorry. Yeah, I know. This show's fucked up, but it's really good. It's amazing, and the handling, the fucking. Dude. This fucking shit. This fucking shit, man. It's like all those small things that make for such a fucking powerful experience in Lane. Now you're speaking my language. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. Alright, this will be our background music for now. it's kind of traumatizing. What was the article? Oh yeah, you want to know a funny thing? Look at this statistic. France has like, please no. Okay, I'll stop it in a minute. Oh fuck, someone's like drilling a hole now too. I don't know if you heard that. Look at this. This is how many people got vaccinated since the vaccine got released. Almost 1 million in the UK, 4.2 million in the US, almost 250,000 in Germany, almost 120,000 in Italy, 4.85 million in China, 516 people in France. It's a bit of a shit show. A lot of French people are pissed off right now. For best comment. A good thing that France is there to be the témoin, like the test. Shit, I forgot the term. Like when you're in when you're doing a study, the test group, or like the reference group. I recognize here the dutifulness and generosity characteristic of our country. Yeah. Alright, where was the article? Anyways, it was an article about how there are people who no longer want to go to protests because they're scared of getting beat up by police. Which, keep in mind, the French Constitutional Court control group. Yeah, exactly. The French Constitutional Court has judged that those protests are legal. All protests in France have to be approved by the French police thing, and like those protests are legal, most of them. When they aren't, trust me, they do get fucking repressed even more. That's a problem. You cannot have a democratic country where people are afraid to go protest because they'll get beat up. That's a very, very grave thing. But that does feel like what the police has been trying to accomplish over the past months. I don't know, the cinematography in Serial Experiments Lane is amazing too. There's another clip that doesn't have any spoilers that I want to show. Lane walking out of her home. No, not cutscene. I'm not going to be able to find it. Seems like it's that for every country where police is militarized. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Cosm. How are you doing? Yeah, definitely. That's actually the discussion I ended up getting in as well, where like, because the guy I was debating was saying that Macron said in his program when he got elected that he was going to do those things, like passing the laws for that reinforce the police powers, give them facial recognition, give them access to drone surveillance of people in big cities, so on and so forth. And so he linked to Macron's program for the election. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna click it and I'm gonna read it. So I scroll down to the part where he talks about police. I read it. There's no mention of anything going in that direction. So I call him out for it on Reddit. Then he responds, well, look at this. He cites a paragraph where it talks about drones. That paragraph was about the military. Macron wants to give the French military and the French intelligence services drones. But those don't depend on the Ministry of the Interior. Those are that's explicitly in the part where he talks about the Ministry of Defense. That has nothing to do normally with equipping the police with those tools. And then the guy also calls creating a centralized facial recognition network connected to police databases a small thing that doesn't need to be mentioned in the program. Though to be fair, I did have to concede one thing that I really didn't think. I thought most French people would be against facial recognition instrumentalized. Certainly not clearly not a coder. Exactly, yeah. I thought most French people would be against centralized facial recognition. They are not. I looked it up because he claimed it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to look up anything this guy says. There is a French census organism that has a study on this. Let's see, I think... Crap, this wasn't the study I looked at. It was an IFOP study. This is 5G. Okay, anyways, trust me on this one. I literally looked it up today. Basically, almost like 60 to 70% of French people are favorable to. Well, no, actually, it wasn't that much. It was like 55 to 60%. Yeah, are in 2019 were favorable to facial recognition being used for security safety purposes. So yeah, they did have that same kind of percentage did have very strong concerns specific to transparency in the usage of facial recognition and the legal processes behind it. So that is not part of Macron's implementation of facial recognition. But I have to grant, like, concerning our earlier discussion of how a democratic process needs to take into account what people actually want, I have to grant it. If like 50 to 60% of French people want facial recognition to be used to improve safety, then I can't hate on Macron for like introducing that in his program. And I hate it because it's a dumb fuck idea for plenty of reasons. But I understand why a politician goes for it when clearly an absolute majority of people are pro that, and it clearly is beneficial to them for their electorate from like a purely like pragmatic Machiavellian perspective. It's just against the interests of democracy and society as a whole, I think. And I have reasons for that. If you want, we can get into them. But I don't think... I feel like I'd be mostly preaching the choir. It's also worth considering the degree to which people are passionate about X issue. Obviously, yes. That's one of the main issues with those kinds of like technological concerns. The people passionate about not having facial recognition take control of our cities and our lives are for the most part cooters. They're not people who don't. And usually, to understand like how dangerous those technologies are, you have to have a strong tech like IT background. I feel like if you don't have that background, I've had that discussion often with my older brother. Actually, his background is psychology studies, and now he's mostly trading. He's mostly like a long debates with him for years about privacy and the importance of protecting your privacy on the internet. How even small measures, like every small step, helps in making for long term a better society, less control in like the Google and Facebook AI profiling monopolies and stuff. But and I totally understand his response. At the end, like he entertained the discussions with me because he also likes having like debates and intellectual discussions. But at some point, he was like, "Yeah, but I don't care. There are other things I want to spend my time being concerned about," and I totally understand that. In the end, I think that's actually a good lesson for anyone who feels strongly about things. It's that I feel strongly about things that I know are beneficial for society and are important. And so I will go out of my way to act correctly by those ideals and personal, like, how would you say it? Whatever, by personal paradigms. Other people will have different ideals. Like I'm not vegetarian or vegan. I try to reduce my meat consumption. I do often eat vegetarian meals, but I'm not a vegetarian. So, but someone else will be. So I try not to be too judgmental of people who don't follow the specific rules I want to impose on myself, understanding that they have their own specific rules that I don't follow either. But that goes back also to what I was saying earlier. Like, we need to figure out ways in society of rather than having a minority of people living perfectly by specific ideals, we need to figure out ways for all of us to contribute small imperfect amounts to those ideals, and that'll be much more effective and require much less self-sacrifice out of people. I don't necessarily want to quote like Destiny out of the blue, but I agree with Destiny when he says that he would like vote for a politician that would do like a big meat tax. I would vote for a meat tax, or like actual collective societal legislation and work to improve those aspects. I don't want to be like one of the individuals who sacrifices himself for it. I'm sorry. That's my take on that. Same, yeah. And that's where I feel also that like the personal blame game that goes in like ecology too. Like you have to make sure to use the proper, buy things that don't create too much waste, yourself, put the things in the right recycling bin, which is important. That's actually an easy thing for everyone to do, and it's good. At least when it actually doesn't go to the same place in the end, but when it actually goes to a recycling facility, it's a great impact. But what can actually have a big impact on society is regulations and laws on packaging products, on wastefulness and those kinds of things. The only way that happens though is when there's more money in being vegan going against meat. Yeah, I mean, we are capable as societies to go against profitability, to agree on things and decide that those are more important than short-term profitability. but it's a long process. It's hard. Dude, people waste so much water. I think that's the worst offender. Probably, yeah. But even there, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Industrial usage of water versus, well, even then though, there's nuance in it, right? I like to in my fucking melon. Yeah, I agree. Melon fucking wasting water. I like my main argument when I say that I'm tired of blaming individuals for like collective issues, is that when you look at the statistics, you see, let's say like individuals cause maybe for any given pollution maybe like 10% of the actual waste or pollution, and then 90% is caused by the industries. But then you can go one step further and realize that those industries are mostly function because we consume what they produce, and then it goes back to us individuals being consumerists. And then we can go one step further again and see us no longer as individuals making individual choices, but as consumers living in a consumerist society in which we have to consume to function, and we're conditioned to consume from our throughout our entire lives. So it's a bit more nuanced than I'm presenting it. Yeah, some crops, almond, I think, require huge amounts of water to sustain. Yeah, almond. The other one I can remember off the top of my head is avocado. It's very, very wasteful. A lot of the superfoods, goji berries, all those like hipster superfoods are like super healthy and super wasteful on water. I agree with this, to be honest. This is kind of like a propaganda spin to the problem, so they don't need to fix it. Yeah, that's what pisses me off too. Like by doing this, you make it like my problem, your problem, and then we don't need to fix it. You can keep saying like, well, like you guys are fucking irresponsible, so have fun with your global warming. No, that's not going to resolve anything. Same with water. A lot of water consumption goes into meat production. Yeah, I remember going through my brother's university environmental sciences book, and that was the first time I learned that like 1 unit of beef was cost like 20 units of vegetable feed, and like 100 or maybe even 1,000, I don't remember, units of water. It's insane. But there are other meats that are less water intensive. Beef is particularly wasteful on that. And then you got the methane production from beef as well. What was I gonna look up? Oh yeah, it was industry usage of water. According to the United States Geological Survey, industrial water Worldwide, high-income countries use 59% of their water for industrial use, while low-income countries use 8%, according to nationalatlas.gov water use. 59% on average of our... Oh, nice URL, National Atlas. Good job. Let's try an HTTP. It's not gonna work. Yeah, whatever. 59%. That's less than I thought it would be, honestly. Because a lot of industrial processes use a lot of water. But yeah, but it's still way more than us individuals use in developed countries. Okay, let's read about incel rats. That was a subject. Questions like, why do men and women act differently? Squad W. Are age-old with tangled, deeply buried answers. But that is why Catherine Dulac, a Howard Hughes medical investigator and a professor of molecular and cellular biology at Harvard University, wow, she's a big brain, holy shit, has become so well respected by her neuroscientist colleagues for the originality and creativity with which she has brought important answers to light. Though she is trained as a developmental biologist, Dulac takes her research into territory usually explored by social scientists by trying to discern the balance of genetic determination and environmental influence that shapes vital behaviors in mammals. Moreover, she deploys the genetic tools of modern biology to discover the mechanisms that activate these behaviors. Relatively early in her career, Dulac's investigations into how animals and detect pheromones changed our understanding of what those airborne chemicals may signify to the brain. More recently, her experiments... Okay, sorry, I need to turn on the light here. My screen's like burning my retinas. I was in full, like, neat cavern lighting mode. Much better. Now my pupils aren't burning looking at this white background. More recently, her experiments identified how the brain circuitry that regulates crucial mating and parenting behaviors works. At least in her model animals, which are mice. Oh wait, no, I thought those were rats. Oh, mice, sorry. My bad. Of mice and men. She found astonishing evidence that although certain of these behaviors are often described as male or female, both types of circuitry are present and potentially active in both sexes. As a result, the right combination of triggers can switch an individual creature's behavior to that of the opposite sex. Scientists are still exploring the full implications of her findings, but Dulac and others are hopeful that they might yield useful insights into conditions like postpartum behavioral disorders. Because of her work's relevance, in September, Dulac, just aged 57, was awarded the $3 million Breakthrough Prize in Life Sciences, the richest single personal award in the scientific world. Nice. The citation for the prize hailed the success of her work, which connected behaviors to specific neural mechanisms and overturned decades-old dogma in behavioral science. In 3 Zoom interviews, that's some 2020 shit. Zoom interviews. From Cambridge, Massachusetts, this fall, Dulac told of the research journey that brought her to these paradigm-shifting findings. This interview is based on those conversations and has been condensed and edited for clarity. Where did you grow up? In Montpellier, in this... I knew that the name was French. In the south of France, or maybe it could have been like French-Canadian, or from like around Mississippi. I've forgotten the name of that estate. In the south of France, where my parents were researchers in the humanities, my dad studied Denis Diderot, a philosopher of the Enlightenment who wrote the first encyclopedia of knowledge. My mom worked on studies of the poetry of the Middle Ages. Because my parents had the same kind of job, I never considered one of their careers as subordinate to the other. Both my parents did the domestic chores. Wow. My mom was in school during the years my brother and I were born, and so, when we were young, my dad took care of us a great deal of the time. Growing up, I saw my parents as these really interesting individuals who each had their own intellectual life and career. It seems like it, yeah. They seem like interesting people. The fact that my 2 parents were kind of equal at home permitted me, a girl, to feel that the world belonged as much to me as any person. Was this unusual in 1960s France? Hell yeah. I would say yes. I would visit the homes of my little friends, and I quickly realized how different my family was. For one thing, my parents really supported my interests. For instance, I was fascinated by prehistory. I probably read the novel Quest for Fire by J.H. Rony a dozen times. It really marked me. I spent a lot of that time imagining prehistoric people and trying to get into their heads. Seeing my fascination, my parents took us to look for fossils in the caves near where we lived. Once we found some bones and teeth, which turned out to be from ancient cave bears. Wow, what a thrill. We were discovering something that had been there for thousands of years and that nobody in modern times has seen before. After that, I became very interested in discovery. She seems really chill and cool. I like people like this. The important thing about my childhood was that our house had literally thousands of books of all kinds. There were books in all the rooms, in the corridors. I read many novels, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, all of Proust, which I must have read 5 times. Damn. I was drawn to the literature of emotions. I realized you read novels because it puts you in the shoes of others. Through their stories, you experience something else, new emotions, new encounters. These writers were asking, what does it mean to be a human being? I was stirred by their questions and by the idea that some understanding of emotions could be found in understanding human interactions. Why do we do what we do? Why do we need social contact? Given your interests, why did you study biology rather than one of the social sciences? As I mentioned earlier, I was interested in discovery. Biology was especially appealing because it had this aspect of trying to understand life. I did my PhD in developmental biology in the laboratory of a very famous developmental biologist at the University of Paris. Oh. Excuse me. Was that Nicole Ledouarin? Nicole Ledouarin, yes. In her laboratory, she was asking about the respective roles of genetic pre-programming and environmental influence in embryonic development. She was also experimenting with this very new single-cell approach to developmental research. Instead of looking at the development of a particular tissue, she looked at a set of cells called the neural crest. They bulge out of the neural tube, the embryonic primordium of the nervous system. They migrate and give rise to the peripheral nervous system and a lot of other things like the pigment cells and the tissues that become the face. So how do these cells decide what they will do? To understand that, Ledouarin developed this approach to look at one cell at a time and try to see what that cell would become instead of looking at all the cells together. I still use this approach in my work today. In neuroscience, it is particularly useful because with the brain, every neuron is a bit different. You need to understand one cell at a time. At the same time, you need information on enough of the different cells to understand what is generally going on. In retrospect, I've come to realize that two themes of Ledouarin's work, intrinsic versus extrinsic influence and the single-cell approach, are at the core of how I work. When I was a Ledouarin student and then later as a postdoc in Richard Axel's lab at Columbia University, I thought I was exploring scientific topics relating to embryonic development and sensory detection. I now think that what I was really moving toward was the use of scientific research to answer some of the questions raised by the novelists I'd read as a younger person. Hoppinard note, this is your neural tube. Ooh. Which specific questions? Where's the... I want to see the insel mice. Good morning, Monsieur Kino. How are you doing? Oops, this music is a bit outdated, but you know what? I'm leaving it. We're 5th of January, we can still listen to Christmas music. It's allowed. Where do important behaviors come from? What is inborn? What is the result of experience? What triggers anger, sadness, dominance, aggression, mating, parenting? In my research, I've been seeking to understand how the brain controls instinctive behaviors. What are the signals? Where are the brain cell populations involved in triggering those behaviors? And how do they differ between animal species and between males and females? Earlier, we mentioned the Nobel laureate Richard Axel. Oh wow, how did you come to work in his laboratory at Columbia? After finishing my doctorate, I wanted to work in the United States for a few years. The neuroscience research community there was so dynamic. I wanted to experience it and then return to France. After looking at the various possibilities, I went to the Axel lab at Columbia. Got there in 1992, a particularly exciting moment. Researchers were using molecular, genetic, and cellular biology tools in new ways to understand how the brain works. Richard Axel and Linda Buck had just made their fabulous discovery of the olfactory receptors in the rodent nose, which was the key to understanding how odorants give rise to the sense of smell. They were to receive the Nobel Prize for this. My goal was to build on their discovery by finding the receptors for pheromones, which are the chemicals that signal for aggression, mating, parenting, and other behaviors in mice and in many animals. Ultimately, I was looking for the cues that trigger instinctive behaviors in mice. The working theory I had was that the receptors for pheromones were closely related to those for olfaction. I met Professor Axel at social events. He's an impressive figure. Did you find him intimidating? On the contrary, he was an inspiration. He said, "In my lab, people are studying extremely difficult problems." He wasn't expecting you to succeed immediately. He expected you to struggle, which I certainly did. In my first 2 years there, I had extreme anxiety because nothing I tried worked out. Nothing. But Richard told me, "You're trying to resolve a very difficult problem. I think you'll succeed. I just don't know when." Damn, what an understanding boss. For me, it was a time of great self-doubt. I tried everything in the repertoire of molecular biology. I'd work till 3 in the morning. Sometimes I thought about Linda Buck, who by then had her own laboratory at Harvard. I thought she was in Richard's lab for 10 years before she discovered the olfactory receptors. But then I'd say, well, you're not as smart as Linda, it'll take you 15. That gave me some peace. Why was finding the pheromone receptors so important? Because this was a step toward understanding aspects of a larger question, not just which behaviors are innate, but how is the brain involved in triggering them. Mice and a number of vertebrates have neurons in their noses, in something called the vomeronasal organ, the VNO. Vomeronasal organ. Vomeronasal. This organ detects pheromones produced by others of the same species and then sends cues to the brain to mate, attack, or do other things. To ascertain if the vomeronasal receptors were different from the smell receptors that Axel and Buck discovered, I made a library of the genes expressed by every individual neuron in the mouse VNO. Damn, that must have been extensive work. I did one cell at a time and then compared them. Yeah, Jesus Christ, no wonder she thought she would take 15 years to do it. This eventually led to my becoming the first to ever isolate a mammalian pheromone receptor. Nice. And the link to her thesis on Elsevier. Why was it such a breakthrough? Because once we did that, it opened possibilities for discovering clues to what triggered particular mammalian, I don't know, behaviors. You could, for example, do experiments where you deleted a specific gene in the mouse so that it could no longer detect certain pheromones, and then you'd look to see how its behavior changed. In the years to come, I did many such experiments. I would say that until our work, there was this idea, at least for mammals, that about rigid structural differences in the brain between males and females. What we found is that it is more complicated than that. It's not as if the brains of a male and female are identical, but they are way more similar than anticipated. Yes, there are early hormonal actions that make a male brain more prone to display male typical behavior and a female more prone to display behavior that is female typical. But that doesn't mean that those brains are so different that one cannot display the behavior of the other. Tell us about some of the experiments that brought you to this idea. Mammalian. Okay, thanks. Mammalian. Tell us about some of the experiments. When I was a junior faculty member at Harvard, we wondered what would happen if we eliminated the cues to the brain from pheromones. Would a male mouse still be aggressive when he encountered another male, the usual behavior? To learn this, we knocked out an essential gene in the mouse's VNO and made him into a pheromone-blind mutant. We then put him together with another male mouse. The mutant did not attack the other male, he mated with him. Oh shit. She found the gay gene. Sorry. It's a joke. That was a total surprise. What could be happening? Could he be mating with the male because there was no female around? So next we put both a male and a female intruder into the mutant's cage. The mutant then attempted to mate with both with equal frequency. Oh shit, it's the bisexual gene. That's what it is. Based. This suggested that the mutant's problem was not with mating, but in distinguishing what is male from what is female. The particular... Please, no. Please don't apply this to human beings. That's problematic to transpose. Okay, let's not make a joke about this one. The particular set of neurons in the vomeronasal organ we were looking at seemed to be dedicated to discriminating males from females. When we eliminated them and the mouse no longer could do that, though, it was still engaging in mating behavior. We did other experiments with female mice where we removed the vomeronasal organ. Surprisingly, without the cues from pheromones, we saw females behaving like males. They would mount others and display courtship behaviors exactly like a male would. Without the organ at all. Interesting. This led to the unexpected notion that circuits for typical male behaviors exist and can function in the adult female brain. I want to say another really memey thing about this. So you take out the vomeronasal organ from a female mouse, and she behaves as a male. That means that the baseline behavior is male. Checkmate, feminists. You bisexuals are mutant abominations, got it? No, that is not the lesson from this. Please do not clip that. Do not clip me saying that. I'm reading a bad joke, okay? This led to they would mount others and display courtship behaviors exactly like a male. Yeah. We've also done similar experiments on mouse parenting behaviors. Were you astonished by those results too? Oh yes, in most species there are particular mechanisms in the brain for displaying behaviors that are mainly male or mainly female. In about 50 or 60% of mammals, the mothers are the primary infant caregivers and the males are aggressive towards the infants or neglect them. If you take a female mouse, and if she hasn't given birth, when you put mouse pups close to her, she will build a nest and take care of them. Now if you put a virgin male in the same situation, he'll very likely try to kill the pups. Here we go, we got our incel mouse. We wondered what might happen if we removed the VNO of a virgin male mouse, removing his ability to detect pheromones. The result was extraordinary. These males were maternal. They took care of the pups, they didn't attack them. This made us think that the mouse brain, whether it is male or female, has circuitry that triggers parental behavior, irrespective of whether their animal is male or female. Following up on this finding, we were able to identify a specific population of neurons expressing the neuropeptide galanin that are essential and sufficient for the expression of parenting in both males and females. Wow. This discovery was the starting point for an in-depth study of the circuitry controlling distinct... Sorry, I can't read and have like songs with lyrics and at the same time. This discovery was the starting point for an in-depth study of the circuitry controlling distinct aspects of parental care in mice. This was, to my knowledge, the first mechanistic deconstruction of a social behavior circuit. Does any of this have implications for humans? Yes and no. The signals that a mouse detects are very specific to other mice. Humans and other higher primates do not have this organ for sensing pheromones. Yeah, I was wondering about that. However, the areas of the brain controlling essential behaviors are thought to be conserved in evolution in all vertebrates, particularly the parts of the hypothalamus that control feeding, reproduction, mating, and parenting. Oh, so we probably have a galanin or something equivalent, right? It is therefore very likely that the neuronal populations and associated circuitry that we discovered in mice also exist in some forms in the human brain to regulate parenting behavior. You know, 10% to 20% of moms have postpartum depression. It's enormous. I've never heard of any mental illness that affects so many people, and yet very few people talk about it. These are mothers who have real difficulty establishing emotional bonds with their infants. Maybe something doesn't work well in the balance of their parental circuitry, in the activity of the neural population that drives parenting versus the one that drives neglect. If we can better understand that, maybe we can find drugs or diagnostic tools that can help the women suffering from this illness. And maybe the drugs can target these neurons very specifically without the side effects of the psychoactive drugs currently in use. Your work on the gendered brain has huge societal implications. Do you find that hard to deal with? Yes, and that's why I'm very cautious in what I say. When I started my lab at Harvard, I had these interesting results where a mutant mouse was mating with both females and males. I read that up. The animal is affected by a particular part of a neuron that doesn't exist in humans. Right. Yeah. So it had no relationship with human behaviors. I was absolutely terrified that some journalist would take that result and say, Dr. Dulac identified the gene for homosexuality or something like that. Did we almost make it through the abstract yet? This is an interview actually. This is not an abstract. This is an interview of this scientist lady. But she's really interesting. I am gonna read through the whole interview. But we're like 60% through, looks like. Maybe 70% if there's like ads down there. Yeah. Yeah, that would be that's got to be terrifying when you do behavioral research like this. I know, sorry. No, don't be sorry, no problem. Don't fucking apologize, okay? Better be sorry for saying sorry. Just joking. Or something like that. When the paper was published in Nature, I asked them to keep the publicity very tame. Yeah. In recent years, I know that's what we've been memeing about, right? In recent years, I've become a little more willing to discuss some of the wider implications of my work. I'm certainly willing to say that in the context of what some call the male brain or the female brain, there is more flexibility than anticipated. What changed you? Society changed. War. War never changes. We know more about these issues than we did 10, 15 years ago. When it comes to sexuality and gender, people are talking more about their own struggles. In part thanks to some celebrities that brought the issue to the forefront. When it comes to sexuality and gender, people are talking more about their own struggles, in part thanks to some celebrities that brought the issue in the forefront. There is a more open discussion of sexuality generally and of matters like gender identity, so I think that now our findings in this context are way more accepted. One event that moved me was meeting the director of the transgender clinic here at Harvard. He said that he thought our finding the circuitry of both males and females in an individual brain was extremely interesting when talking about transgender individuals. He spoke of 3- and 4-year-olds who'd tell him, "I'm not a boy" or "I'm not a girl," suggesting that their identity had nothing to do with the environment but was intrinsic. It's not clear what sets gender identity in the human brain, but the fact that in a mouse you have the physical circuitry for both male and female behaviors gives way more context for what could happen in humans. These issues are very complex, and there's not just one model for male behavior or female behavior. Not every woman wears lipstick, not all men are athletes. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of things in between, and it does a disservice to understanding humans to say that we have to obey these very narrow rules. Do you think that over your career you've asked research questions that male researchers might not? To some extent. One aspect I've certainly done differently was use both male and female animals in my studies. Till very recently, the general standard was to use only male animals as models. It was said, among other things, that because of their reproductive cycle, females were too complicated to study. Shit. This is... The worst part of that is I'm not even fucking surprised that we would have, like, male-centric science. It's so dumb. Jesus Christ. This is literally why when I read stuff like this, I feel so fucking justified when I argue with a dumb fucking reactionary being like, we gotta stop with all this like representation and feminism bullshit. The law is already equal, dude. We don't need any of that. And it's also unfair to the... Dude, we need representation in all fields, okay? Holy shit. Anyways, my caricature of the reactionary dude was really bad. I'm sorry. I didn't feel like making a high effort one. It was said, among other things, that because of their reproductive cycle, females are too complicated to study. Oh yeah. Yet in our studies, we found our way more variability among males than previously thought. The reason for this we don't yet know. It might be there are dramatic differences between dominant and subordinate male mice, but the idea that there is great variability in females and not in males is scientifically wrong. Have you in your career run into much sexism? I have not experienced discrimination. My mentor, Nicole Ledouarin, probably did way more than I did. She was married and she had 2 children and she wanted to do research. At nearly every lab where she applied, they said, "Why do you want to do research? Your husband is a researcher. That should be sufficient." Holy shit. That's such a Squad W thing to say. Jesus Christ. For myself, I have always felt respected by my colleagues, but I have sometimes noticed things that happen in one's professional life. If, for instance, I go to a conference and it's the first evening of the meeting, if my neighbor at the dinner table is a man and he hasn't seen my name on the place card very often, I have the feeling that he's not interested in anything I have to say. Damn. Then it turns out that I'm the one giving the keynote lecture, and that same guy now comes to me and says, "Oh my god, this is so interesting." Like, surprise, surprise, right? This has happened so many times, it's comical. Well, many times. One of your former postdocs, Anita Autry, now of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, tells me that when you submit grant proposals or papers, the anonymous reviewers sometimes write comments reeking of sexism. She theorizes that they are able to hide behind the anonymity to dress down a successful woman. Is she right? It is interesting that you're bringing this up. It is actually a problem for editors, and it's a problem for the National Institutes of Health. When women make submissions, they get slammed for perceived weaknesses, while the men are more frequently given the benefit of the doubt. The critiques are often insulting, condescending. I remember applying for a collaborative grant with 2 women colleagues who are extraordinary scientists themselves, Aviv Regev at the Broad Institute and Xiaowei Zhuang at Harvard. And here you have 3 really well-known women applying. I thought our grant was, frankly, spectacular, that when you got the reviews, we received top scores, but some of the comments were just nasty. And I remember having a sense that even the program officer at the NIH was embarrassed by them. There was such a discrepancy between the quality of the grant proposal and the nastiness of the comments. Similarly, when we submit manuscripts, unacceptable things happen. I'm pretty sure that some of my male colleagues also get nasty reviews, but statistically speaking, getting nasty and condescending language is more frequent for women. Do you have a study for that? Sorry. Recently, I submitted a paper involving hardcore electrophysiology, which is not my specialty. Hardcore electrophysiology. That sounds like something that happens in a sex dungeon. Let's be real. I'm going on to a hardcore electrophysiology party on Sunday. Gonna wear my electrophysiological suit, if you know what I mean. Hardcore. I had a male electrophysiologist collaborate on it. When the comments came back, one reviewer basically said I had no idea what I was doing. But again, the particular work that involved electrophysiology was actually done and written up by my collaborator, a very experienced electrophysiologist. He told me he never ever had comments like this ever in his life. Earlier in this interview, you said that after you'd finished your postdoc in the Axel lab, you intended to return to France. What happened? You are right. I intended to return. After all, I'm French and there is much in the French culture and way of life that is wonderful. Fucking baguettes and croissants. It's not a great place for research, though. That's probably where she's gonna get to. In their private lives, French people enjoy themselves more than here. Hells yeah. But academic traditionalism is a real thing. Yep. After finishing my postdoc, I went back to France to find a job, and there was such a discrepancy between what I was offered there and what I might be offered in the US. I was told I was way too young to have my own laboratory, that I still had to learn from a more senior person. Yeah, for someone like passionate about research, France is garbage. More than anything, I want to have my own laboratory and have fun doing more research. I ended up at Harvard where these things could happen. Then they trapped me because Harvard gave me tenure quickly, in roughly 5 years. This lady sounds brilliant. No wonder they gave her tenure really quick. Quack. Long ago, in another century, Sigmund Freud declared that biology is destiny. In your lab, are you disproving that? Well, it is destiny. But at the same time, biology is also flexible, and I like that. That's a nice note to end this interview on. Kismet. Alright, is there anything we want to expand on from this interview? That was a lot of information. Oh yeah, there's one thing this really made me think of. There's a YouTube documentary about a rat experiment. Let's go on youtube.com. Rats experiment. God, you guys are seeing my ASMR suggestions. Don't look at my screen. Rats experiment. Yeah, overpopulation. This is a very unethical experiment. Yeah, down the rabbit hole from Frederick Knudsen. This is a really good. Do you guys want to watch it? It's 24 minutes, and we can watch it. Oh, I need to up the volume. Pump up the volume if you want. I'm down to watch it again, especially since we're like in the subject, so.
Of the strange research to come out of mid-1900s America.
Oops, sorry.
Of the strange research to come out of mid-1900s America, there is little with a legacy as enduring or as terrifying as the Mouse Utopia experiments.
That face when your suggestions are just ASMR. Yes, I'll admit I listen to a lot of ASMR on YouTube. It helps me relax and sleep when I'm like working on other stuff. I like to listen to ASMR when I'm lying in bed. Anyways, back to our scheduled content.
Taking place throughout the 50s, 60s...
Oh yeah, sorry. One thing, trigger warning. Cruelty to animals, extreme, and like... I don't want to spoil too much, but like psychological distress and extreme... and like... I think there's even cannibalism in there at some point. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But yeah, this experiment is really fucked up. So like, if you don't want to watch that kind of content, tune out now. Yeah, I like unintentional ASMR too. It's really nice.
And early 70s, the grim fate of the subjects was published in the national magazine Scientific American, and the experiments themselves were largely taken as apocalyptic portents. In a post-war United States, the language used to describe the results such as behavior sync became synonymous with fears of an overpopulated world and violent, deviant behavior in cities. Today, they are preserved within fiction, such as Channel 4's conspiracy thriller Utopia and the classic animated movie The Secret of NIMH.
Our world began changing.
So what were the Mouse Utopia experiments? Shortly after World War II, a group known collectively as the Environmentalists were making a large push to prevent environmental degradation, as well as overexploitation of the planet's renewable resources. Among these people were a group specifically known as the Neo-Malthusians, a term referring to the 18th and 19th century English scholar Thomas Robert Malthus. Malthus proposed that while the world's population may increase exponentially, food production can only increase linearly, leading to an eventual subsistence-level existence for the human race that became known as a Malthusian catastrophe. While advancements such as the Green Revolution saw that this didn't come about, the Neo-Malthusians acknowledged his concerns about overpopulation and feared that this pattern would result in the collapse of civilization or, at best, have extreme adverse effects. These fears were given a platform in writing of the time, especially in works such as William Folkt's Road to Survival in 1948, and perhaps most famously, Silent Spring by Rachel Carson in 1962. Before the movement's explosion of popularity in the 50s and 60s, however, researchers had already begun work investigating the effects of population growth, and among them was a man named John B. Calhoun. Born in 1917, Calhoun took an early interest in science, specifically ornithology, publishing his first paper on birds when he was 15, but over time, his interest would change. By the time he received his PhD, his focus had turned to ethology, the study of animal behavior. When his education was concluded, he moved with his family to Towson, Maryland, to begin research at Johns Hopkins University in nearby Baltimore, but the research itself would be conducted much closer to home. In 1947, shortly after he arrived, he approached his neighbor about using some of their neglected property for an experiment. The scope would be massive, and according to Calhoun, his neighbor probably didn't expect such a scale when they agreed to let him use the forested area. Taking over a quarter of an acre, Calhoun constructed a massive habitat, complete with food, water, ample shelter, and protection from predators, with the only limiting condition being their restriction to the quarter-acre living space. He affectionately provided his enclosure a name: Rat City. Unfortunately, no publicly available images of Rat City exist. Calhoun was very familiar with Norway rats, having performed research on them for his doctorate, and he estimated that Rat City could sustain approximately 5,000 individuals, though if they reached this number, the population density would be tight. He began by placing 5 pregnant females in the enclosure, providing ample genetic diversity, and soon the population was increasing exponentially. But then something surprising happened. Rather than the population increasing to fill the space of the enclosure, it quickly leveled off at 150 members. He also noted some behavioral peculiarities. Despite the large size of Rat City, the residents seemed to gather around just a few places, forming social groups of 12 and limiting themselves to specific feeding locations. He would conclude the experiment after 2 years and 4 months, during which the population never grew over 200. Careful observation revealed the cause: high infant mortality. For some reason, as the experiment progressed and the population increased, the mothers were not caring for their young properly, leading to most of them dying before reaching maturity. Calhoun had his theories as to why this was, but to prove them, he would need more data. In 1954, about 5 years after his initial experiment concluded, he was hired by the National Institute of Mental Health, often shortened to NIMH. Within the laboratory of psychology, Calhoun was given ample resources to continue his work. With a team, he began feverishly designing and constructing habitats, sometimes referred to as universes, where he performed numerous smaller-scale and more controlled versions of his original rat study on a domesticated strain of albino Norway rat. These rats would want for nothing. All physical needs for a healthy rat lifestyle would be provided for them, including food, water, climate control, and nesting material. Calhoun spent 8 years perfecting his enclosures and methods until finally, in February of 1962, an article of his writing was published in the magazine Scientific American. The article was entitled Population Density and Social Pathology. His opening paragraph ominously reads so, quote, "In the celebrated thesis of Thomas Malthus, vice and misery impose the ultimate natural limit on the growth of populations. Students of the subject have given most of their attention to misery, that is, to predation, disease, and food supply as forces that operate to adjust the size of a population to its environment. But what of vice? Setting aside the moral burden of this word, what are the effects of the social behavior of a species on population growth, and of population density on social behavior?" Unquote. To answer this question, he cited 6 of his experiments in particular, all with similar composition and concerningly similar results. The design of these habitats was simple. The layout was a rectangle measuring 10 feet by 14 feet, divided into 4 equal sections by electric
Here
fences.
we go.
3 of these fences sported
experiment.
bridges over which the rats could climb, while one fence lacked such a bridge, essentially creating one long space that wrapped in on itself. Each section was equipped similarly, with a food hopper, water, and nesting areas accessible by spiral staircases. But Calhoun, leveraging his experience with the rats, made special changes to encourage specific behaviors. He enticed the rats to use one of the center pens by making the spiral staircase to that pen's living spaces shorter than the others, though he admits this was a comparatively small factor. But the more insidious change was to their food supply. In half of the experiments, Calhoun supplied powdered food, but in the other half he placed feeders of his own design, consisting of hard pellets behind a wire mesh. Half of his experiments began with 32 mice, the other half with 56, of evenly male and female composition, and all having just reached maturity. Calhoun estimated that approximately 40 rats could comfortably be housed in these enclosures, but he would allow these populations to increase to 80 before he would cull them. Almost immediately after introduction, things began to go awry. The females, unsurprisingly, spread themselves out somewhat evenly through the pens, but after the males jockeyed for dominance and those of highest rank were determined, they began to distribute themselves strangely. Less dominant male rats will typically awaken earlier and begin to wander and forage for food, and due to the design of the pen, this meant that they usually would end up in the center sections to eat. During this time, the dominant males of the outer pens would wake up and begin guarding their respective territories. Since there was only one entrance ramp to either end, the dominant males of either pen would bar the return of the less dominant males, forcing the male population to clump in the center pens, while the dominant end males protected what came to be their harems. Only a few other deferential males were allowed to remain. These few remaining males began exhibiting odd behavior. Though they would spend most of their time in the burrows with the females, hiding away from the dominant male, they would never attempt to mate with any of them. Instead, perplexingly, they would try to mate with the dominant male, and even more perplexing, the dominant male would not fight these attempts. At the same time as this was happening, the effect of Calhoun's special feeders was taking hold. Since procuring food was such a lengthy process at the hard food feeders, it was common for one rat to join another while in the process of feeding. By this method, the rats slowly became conditioned to eating in the company of other rats until, eventually, the rats would refuse to eat unless another rat was present. Since more rats tended to be in the center pens, this behavior meant that, over time, more and more rats made their way there, further condensing them. This heightened the proximity of an already cramped population. In the experiments with the powdered food,
Chat, will you eat with me?
this effect was far less pronounced. With these factors combined, Calhoun noted what he called a behavioral sink, or an increase in pathological activity in the rats due to the stress involved in such high population density. For the females, the behavioral sink manifested in reduced capacity for nest building and young rearing. Infant rats are extremely dependent upon their mothers for nearly all things. However, under the effects of the behavioral sink, the mothers would often be interrupted in their nest building practices to engage in some other social activity. As time
Haven't even taken a walk today. I'm not allowed dinner yet. Yes, not allowed dinner. I'll take out the leash and take you out on a walk, Hoppin. Don't worry.
wore on, this led to sparser nests which could not house the young properly. If a mother decided to move her litter, she often would only move some of them or scatter them about the pen in separate locations. What's more, when female rats are ready to mate, the males can sense it, and the enclosed space meant that a female could not escape the continuous advances of the males during these periods. Even when they would enter their nests for a reprieve, they would be followed in and harrowed. These factors together resulted in an extremely high infant mortality rate, in one case reaching 96%. For the males, this manifested in different ways. The dominant males would occasionally lash out in violence against the other members of the pen, including infants, often biting and wounding their tails. Among the lower class males were three groups. The first he described as the homosexuals, which he immediately corrects as pansexuals, who would not compete for status but would often attempt to mate with any other rat, regardless of gender or age. Much like in the end pens, these advances went unchallenged. The second group he described as somnambulists, who moved slowly through the pen without interacting with other individuals in any fashion, and the other rats, in turn, ignored them, except in rare circumstances.
This hits me in the feels. Us, yeah. Navigating through life without interacting with anyone else. Oh no.
These rats, externally, he described as fat, sleek, and healthy looking.
Hey, we're healthy
the
looking.
strangest group was the third, which he named the probers. These rats were hyperactive, hypersexual, and pansexual. Despite violence from the dominant males, they would viciously pursue females in heat, eschewing any sort of courtship ritual and following them into their burrows to mate. Later on in the experiments, they would often find the corpses of the improperly cared for young, which they would cannibalize. In time, one of Calhoun's assistants would publicly describe these pens as hell. At this point, Calhoun ended the experiments, but he predicted that these pathological changes would have eventually led to the deaths of the colonies. At their conclusion, he would take the 4 healthiest males and females and allow them to breed, but their behavior had been so inexorably altered that none of their pups survived beyond weaning.
Yeah, I warned you. Those experiments are brutal.
This short article enraptured its
They
US audience,
are
and the effects on
pretty
both the
unethical.
scientific world and popular culture were immediate. People began to relate Calhoun's rat experiments to modern city life, and in an era where fear of social deviance was reaching an extreme high, it was largely seen as a reflection of the current time and where society could be heading, egged on by Calhoun's provocative language and allegorical design of his test environment, made to look like a city. Population density quickly became a common topic. Psychologist Carl Rogers, in his work Some Social Issues Which Concern Me, stated that, quote, "The resemblance to human behavior is frightening. In humans, we see poor family relationships, the lack of caring, the complete alienation, the magnetic attraction of overcrowding, the lack of involvement which is so great that it permits people to watch a long, drawn-out murder without so much as calling the police. Perhaps all city dwellers are inhabitants of a behavioral sink." Unquote. Soon after, studies of dense urban environments were conducted to see if these effects translated directly to humans, but what they found was inconclusive and unsatisfying. Despite the suggestions of Calhoun's rats, humans in cities reacted differently or sometimes opposite the manner that researchers expected, depending on the location. No matter how they tried, no evidence of a widespread behavioral sink could be found in urban areas. But this did not.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt again, but that's something I really liked in the interview of that we read of the other lady, that she insisted on like how dangerous it is to jump to conclusions and try to use animal experiments to to like explain human behavior. Like what this guy did, like the way he published his findings, is very unscientific and irresponsible. Obviously, well, in hindsight, it's easy to say, but yeah.
Not dissuade Calhoun. Even as others explored the problem of overcrowding, Calhoun frantically continued his research. Now a celebrated success and emboldened by the public acceptance of his ideas, he resumed his work at NIM on an even larger scale, though again away from the public eye. He spent his time on new subjects as he continued to perfect his enclosures and experiments until finally, after 11 years, Calhoun revealed his magnum opus through an article he entitled Death Squared, which was published in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society of Medicine in January of 1973. The lengthy opening to this article was undeniably apocalyptic. Calhoun wrote, "I shall largely speak of mice, but my thoughts are on man, on healing, on life and its evolution. Threatening life and evolution are the two deaths, death of the spirit and death of the body. Evolution, in terms of ancient wisdom, is the acquisition of access to the tree of life." Unquote. He goes on to heavily reference Revelations and of the riders of the apocalypse, using them to proclaim that the Hippocratic Oath applies not only to the body, but to the spirit. After
Nice. It's nice when a scientific study quotes the Bible. I need to click Tally's link. Biologists are announced they're all done with rodents. There's nothing about them that requires further scientific inquiry. We exhausted every possible line of scientific inquiry into the various species. The nation's researchers announced Thursday that they are completely done with rodents. Easy.
this dramatic introduction, he described his test. For the most part, these new experiments were similar to his 1963 trials, including unlimited access to food and water, protection from the elements and predators, and safeguards against disease. Many parts, however, were drastically altered. As Calhoun mentions in his introduction, the Norway rats used in his first publicized experiments were replaced with albino house mice, which were taken from a breeding group from the National Institutes of Health made specifically to prevent communicable disease. To fit his new subjects, Calhoun had designed an entirely new enclosure. This version was much more vertical, with 16 wall-mounted housing areas for the rats at the tops of long metal tubes, which Calhoun called walk-up apartments. At the bottom of each apartment was a virtually unlimited supply of food, water, and nesting material. With the space provided, Calhoun estimated that it could potentially hold 3,840 mice. He named this enclosure Universe 25. Calhoun's methods also had changed. Rather than instituting population controls, he would interfere far less. His plan was to place 8 mice in the enclosure, 4 male and 4 female, and simply watch and wait. Calhoun observed 4 distinct phases in the ensuing experiment. Phase A was predictable, constituting the time period before the first new mice were born, which ended up being 104 days. For the mice, these days were, quote, marked by considerable social turmoil. After the social order was established and the first brood was born, the population began Phase B, which Calhoun named the exploitation phase. During this time, the mice doubled in number every 55 days as new young grew to maturity and had their own young. This doubling continued until day 315, after which the doubling rate slowed to a rate of 145 days, nearly 3 times as long. By this point, the different broods had clumped into one side of the pen, exhibiting the same sort of clumping as the Norway rats, but this time without any coaxing from Calhoun's designs. This change in the rate of procreation marked Phase C, which Calhoun labeled as the stagnation phase. This is when the most notable events occurred, and they eerily mirrored Calhoun's rat experiments. In a natural setting, those mice which find no social niche will leave the colony, but in this experiment, emigration was impossible, and so those forced to remain withdrew from society. These dejected males formed a large pool in the center of the enclosure. They quickly became characterized by both their inactivity and their many scars and wounds. Occasionally, they would grow agitated and attack one another, and with nowhere to retreat, the recipient of these attacks would simply lay still and endure the assault. The outcast females, rather than joining them, would retreat to the highest apartments and live quietly among one another. It was during this time that the behavioral sink manifested, with mice gathering around specific food hoppers in large numbers, while others remained almost entirely untouched, showing how, again, the need for social interaction had become so intertwined with the need for food that the former had overtaken the latter. The males who had won the initial fights also were placed under extreme stress. As more and more mice reached maturity from within and without, the leaders of the social groups continually had to patrol and defend their territory. Eventually, they reached the point of exhaustion and could not defend the females within their group. These females were therefore forced to defend the nest themselves, even when nursing their young, leading to generalized aggressive behavior. This aggression would inevitably be misdirected onto their young, who would be wounded by their mothers and forced to leave the nest before they were finished weaning. Much like the rats, the mother mice would also forget some of their young when moving from one nesting site to another. Due to the added stress of defending their territory, sometimes the mothers would reabsorb unborn mice in the womb, further reducing the fertility rates. Calhoun writes, "For all practical purposes, there had been a death of societal organization by the end of Phase C. Finally, there was Phase D, which Calhoun entitled the death phase. This phase was characterized largely by an entire generation of young who had been rejected by their mothers early and forced to leave the nest, and they were therefore unable to exhibit normal social behavior. This manifested in numerous ways. The females of this generation had far fewer children, and those that did have children lacked the maternal instincts necessary to raise them beyond weaning." Calhoun goes on to describe the males of this generation. Quote, "Male counterparts to these non-reproducing females were soon dubbed the beautiful ones. They never engaged in sexual approaches toward females, and they never engaged in fighting, and so they had no wound or scar tissue. Thus, their pelage remained in excellent condition. Their behavioral repertoire became largely confined to eating, drinking, sleeping, and grooming, none of which carried any social implications beyond that represented by contiguity of bodies." Unquote. As the last mice with reproductive instincts aged beyond their fertility, Calhoun declared that the last male would die around day 1780 of the experiment, effectively rendering the colony dead, as it would be unable to produce any more young. His present tense language implied that, when the article was published, the colony was still technically alive, though its final fate was practically sealed. Calhoun closed his article with a call to action. "For an animal so complex as man, there is no logical reason why a comparable sequence of events should not also lead to species extinction. If opportunities for role fulfillment fall far short of the demand by those capable of filling roles and having expectancies to do so, only violence and disruption of social organization can follow. Individuals born under these circumstances will be so out of touch with reality as to be incapable even of alienation. Their most complex behaviors will become fragmented. Acquisition, creation, and utilization of ideas appropriate for life in a post-industrial, cultural, conceptual, technological society will have been blocked. Just as biological generativity in the mouse involves this species' most complex behaviors, so does ideational generativity for man. Loss of these respective complex behaviors means death of the species."
Yeah, that's a big stretch. I want to react, guys. Don't bully the Calhouns. I'm sure there are good Calhouns out there. Okay, we'll do a Wikipedia search after this, and make a study of the Calhouns. Okay. Don't smug me.
But even as Calhoun was performing his research on mice, others had been at work applying his theories to humans. By this point, researchers had moved to more specific locations of overcrowding rather than the generalized location of cities, testing the effects on students in dormitories and patients at hospitals, but the most fruitful example they discovered was in prisons. Paul Paulus from the University of Texas wrote that prisons were the perfect place for this sort of study, describing the social interaction between inmates as intense, prolonged, inescapable, and realistic. The prison in the study also offered the closest analog to Calhoun's rat experiments, since the prisoners could not escape the company of others, even in their communal cells. There, they found connections between over-socialization and suicide, violence, psychopathy, and stress. After such studies, environmental psychologists began to discover the problem. They identified two different kinds of density: physical density and social density. Physical density was the amount of space per person, while social density was the number of individuals occupying a space. They found that social density was the much more important factor, as individuals in high social density were unable to control their interactions with others. Based on this research, human environments could be designed to at least partially mitigate these issues, allowing those living within them the privacy they needed to maintain healthy social interaction. Outside of scientific discourse, Calhoun's rhetoric has maintained its strength through the years, with different groups of all political persuasions bending his results to support their views on social degradation.
Okay, sorry, I need to interrupt this. Let's take bets. What kind of site is this? I want to bet this is, like, okay. Okay, this is MG Tau, yeah. That's roughly, no, this is further, this is like, alt-right. This is actually full-on alt-right bullshit. You can tell just from this headline. I was just looking at those other headlines and I was like, okay, you can bet this is some alt-right ageism thing. No, this is full on. 6 signs that a man is a cuckold. Like, Jesus Christ. Check the ad on the top. Oh, yeah. Nailed it. Those guys nailed their ad targeting right there. Oh yeah, masculinity tab. Oh shit. What? Compliant? Where is it? Oh no, compliant female. Oh my god. Jesus. Jesus Christ Almighty, save us from this. And he's got the Reddit avatar. Oh no. Oh my god. Let's hire. Yeah. Okay, let's get past
however
this.
they may define it. Among more scholarly sources, Calhoun has been both lauded and criticized for his work. Those who support him cite his
I think I recognize this from the Contra video on Pickup Artists, so I think this is Pickup Artists. Okay. We can take a look afterwards.
forward thinking about overpopulation, while those who deride him cite his misrepresentation of the actual social problems within cities, guiding discourse away from the true causes of societal discord. But no matter what those in the modern day think of his research, his influence on the way America views its cities is undeniable.
Yeah, it's Rouge V. I'm right, suck it. Alright, good one left. At this point, make a list called Take a Look Afterwards so you don't forget. We hit the end of the video. Alright, did you guys like this? I really like this documentary. It's an interesting, it's a really sad experiment, but it's an interesting one. And to a certain extent, it says a lot more how people interpreted it than the experiment itself makes, tells us about people itself. Yeah, that guy does make good videos, definitely. I've also watched, I've absolutely not watched all of them, but I watched quite a few of them. Spooky background music. Alright, what was that? Return of Kings. Let's hope it's TOS friendly. It might not be. I'm gonna open it just off screen for a second. Make sure it's okay. Culture and masculinity topics. It's on hiatus since 2018. That's good news. If you hate the patriarchy, give us back our electricity. Oh no. Those guys fucking own they own electricity now because of Nikola Tesla. What the fuck? Alright, let's go through that particular thing of bullshit. 2 signs to identify liberal in disguise. Oh no. Probably because he's a reptilian. That's how you recognize them. The devolution of the West can be seen through popular sports. The DSP one and the Sonichu one is pretty good as well. I don't think I've seen the Sonichu one. I did watch the DSP one. It's definitely good, yeah. I want to see this. Peter Blackmeyer is a writer who has lived and traveled throughout America. He believes that America and the freedom it represents is the greatest culmination of the Western tradition. Yes, my tradition. How to conquer writer's block and no more articles. True. Hey, thanks for the follow, Big Dog. Yeah, that's actually super ironic that the last article is is how to conquer writer's block. Maybe you already followed me. I've noticed sometimes you get like unfollowed by accident or by or without your input. I don't know how it works. Down with the patriarchy, shouts a blue-haired, non-binary, non-gender conforming thing at the top of its God, I can't even read this out loud without being like TOS. Holy, that's okay. So we start off with a caricature of the Sweegie. Has the world gone mad? Has the apocalypse finally come? What is going on here? Is there a virus in the water? No, it's just Tuesday at a university in America. And the blue-haired shrieking person, I'm gonna apply some editorializing to this. Happens to be your professor. Have fun at school, fellas. Yes. Yes. So that fear. You know, the worst fucking part with reading this kind of thing is that I have a friend who buys this shit wholesale. I fucking hate it. Like we debate on things regularly, and we exchange we exchange a lot. Last evening he sent me the face when I was promised cutie pie blue-haired professors. Feels bad, man. I agree. Feels bad, man. Blue hair is fucking tweet. Amen, a woman. Where's that? Oh god. Okay, and this valeursactuelles.com. This is a far right. Well, you kind of can't see it because of the chats. This valeursactuelles.com. This is a French far right. This is basically like Breitbart, French edition. Or maybe even like Stormfront level. No, it's Breitbart. It's not Stormfront level. It's Breitbart. Anyways, let's not go there. I want to see the tweet from the representative, guy. Wait, it got deleted? Oh no, this is just the Twitter bug. Yeah, I just have to refresh. So my reactionary friend sends me this. The prayer to open the 117th Congress ended with "Amen" and "A woman." Amen is Latin for "so be it." It's not a gendered word. Fortunately, facts are relevant to progressives. Unbelievable. Like, dude, this guy, it's like, here, let's listen to it.
We ask it in the name of the monotheistic God, Brahma, and God known by many names, by many different faiths. A man and a woman.
Like, it's obviously a joke. I don't know. To me, it's really obviously a joke. So I tell him, like, okay, it's a joke. I think it's a bit funny how, like, American Christian conservatives get like super butthurt about it. And he's like, really? You think so? Like, what? Do you really think a fucking congressman doesn't know that amen is a single word and not amen? Really? What the fuck? Anyway, sorry, I needed to rant on that. Traditional gender roles. Wow. In traditional society, women's role was to maintain the household, raise the children, and care for her husband, Grug. We are traditional, sorry. The men ventured outside the household to hunt, make war, build and gather resources. Okay, you know, I'm not gonna read that. I'm gonna scroll through it. Men's technological inventions. Women don't behave like men. We just read like some super interesting science that points against this, and we just have this guy like traditionalist. Whatever. Okay, let's identify liberals. They support women's rights. Oh yeah, that's a terrible thing. We sure don't want to hang out with those kinds of people. And to this day, there are conservatives who support. Oh yeah, I hold to the claim that allowing females to vote was a rotten call of judgment by men. Nice. Nice one, buddy. They support libertarianism. This kind of looks like Trump's haircut, don't you think? Anyways. I'd be fine living in a libertarian society. How cool would that be? I get to live as I please, and as long as I don't harm another, I am free to be myself. What a glamorous fantasy. It is a fantasy. That's not how the real world operates. Well, I can agree on this guy with on roughly on that. Beware, Dave Rubin is a progressive in infancy. What? Oh my god, this is like, I guess this is what people feel like reading like Twitter communists say be like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is like a sellout. What the fuck? Okay, and let's see how to conquer writer's block. They must really know. They must really know how to do it, because, you know, they stopped writing right after. Mark Twain, someone's had that experience. Geoffrey Chaucer, with an empty parchment and a quill pen. Nice stock photo, yeah. It's important to understand a writing project's phases: planning, writing, editing. Wow. Creative flow. What the? just meditate into levitation, dude, and you'll let the inspiration channel through you. Oh, this reminds me. Since we're in like crazy right-wing bullshit, did you guys know there is a particular brand of Buddhism that is like alt-right and fascism adjacent? It originates from I had this guy's name in my brain when I researched it. He'll be easy to find. Buddhism and fascism. Oh, yeah, that's the Japanese version. But I don't want to. I wasn't looking for the Japanese thing. There was this German philosopher that was that was a Nazi who and this is all going to be about the swastika. Damn it. Buddhism, Nazi philosopher. Maybe? Wasn't Schumacher. Maybe types of Buddhism. Well, it isn't quite a separate type. It's more that this guy was like really into mysticism. I guess there's several of them, obviously. Like there is this Wolfgang Schumacher guy. Who is this? I never heard of this guy. Frau Wagner studied classical philology and Sanskrit philology. Influence of his Nazi views on his scholarship. There's no links to like... Well, I know. Take me a while, but the host, he's like an incel monk, and he also posts like how he's like super into making Buddhism very patriarchal, which actually, like we in developed countries, we have this view of Buddhism that is very progressive, like as a very progressive thing, because all the people who get into are more like the New Age, progressive type ways of thinking. But if you go into Asia, where it's in countries where it's a traditional institutional religion, you will see a lot of the same stuff you see with any traditional institutional power system in our countries, which is to say you'll see a lot of chauvinism, patriarchy, and like social conformity in general. And so it's not that surprising. So, anyways, that guy he lives somewhere in Southeast Asia. He lives a monk's lifestyle, and he posts like alt-right propaganda with a Buddhist flavoring to it. All right, I still have 20 minutes. You know what? I'm gonna find it. I'll try to find that dude. How did I find him though? I think I found him through. There's like a Buddhism stack exchange. I mean, there is one for like every major religion. Does the Zen Master from Cyberpunk 2077 accurately represent Buddhism? Do the stores still sell coom cake? Yes, they do. I have some here. That's why I have the. That's why I have the king crown, because I bought one yesterday and I've been eating it. In and of itself, it's great to have like stack exchanges to share your interests and stuff like that. But the way I was educated in Buddhism, it was in a very like non-dogmatic way, I guess. I guess it's not a status quo where like when one enters and remains in cessation of perception and feeling during death, where in 31 planes of existence will he go to? Like, I was never taught that there are like 31 planes of existence, and to care about them and care about what like all this mythology behind it, which is super interesting. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but this stuff to me feels very like vacuous and superficial. And who am I to judge? I'm agnostic. I don't practice it itself. But I am a person to judge. Like I've seen it gives to me it gives like a very culty feel, and also at least what I was taught to care about is compassion and working on yourself and developing yourself to be a better person. Who gives a shit about the 31 planes of existence? At least, well, that was the brand I was taught. But like with any religion, there's like different ways of approaching it, and my way's the best one. That's why I guess what I'm getting at. Anyways, in the long line of bullshit I'm saying, let's get to what the fuck. Okay, Buddhist alt-right blog. Oh shit, is it this? No, it's the Imperfect Buddha. I think it's this one. Is it? Is it this one? Oh no. Or is it alt-right Buddha? Europe for the Europeans? Oh god. Sam Harris quoted here. Punching Richard Spencer. Shia LaBeouf shouting. Jeez, they hit the important themes there. I agree. Good thing everyone can become European easily too. Yeah, that works. I'll stand by that. Shit. I know I'm so close to finding it, but I'll have to look for it. I don't know, it's pretty funny for from like to read from like a progressive perspective. Well, funny and I guess a bit sad. We've done it. We're on the second page of the Google search results. I can play some more music. Oh, yeah, I need to lower the volume. Bump up the volume. Yeah. To a certain extent, I want to show it to you for the entertainment value, but it also feels kind of yucky looking for that stuff, you know? Like, at the end of the day, the reason I took pleasure in reading that stuff was out of a sense of indignation and moral superiority, which are okay things to indulge in from time to time, but if you are seeking those things every day in your life, you should probably look at what you're trying to run away from in your life, because that's the realization I came to personally, is that I was using those things to run away from things in my own life. So, and your mileage may vary, but I watch out with like actively looking for things to get indignated about. Running away from what just got here. I was talking because I was just looking for some interesting. I was looking for a blog from like an alt-righter MG Tao Buddhist monk person. I think it's like interesting to show to people from the Western world, because we so strongly associate in our media Buddhism with progressive values when it really doesn't have to be. And like that's an interesting, like, crazy perspective to look at. So I wanted to show it, and I couldn't find it, and now I was just ranting about like how looking for that kind of stuff feels icky to me. And the reason there are two reasons why it feels icky. First off, like platforming and bringing attention to ideas that are more or less heinous. I understand it's like entertainment for making fun of it. I think it's okay to do that. But also, the main reason is that I realized at some point in my life that I was pretty depressed or like unhappy with my life. Is washing his hands right now. Yeah, I was pretty depressed and unhappy with my life. And because of that, I would regularly look for things to be unhappy or indignated, like angry about on the internet. And that would distract me from my life. But just as like seeing myself in the other PC screen distracts me. But that's not a healthy process. So that's where I was at. Like, I think it's okay to do it from time to time. Get that, you know, that little like ego boost from feeling some moral superiority over like what some guy you disagree with said, and or like scoff at some like ridiculous and uneducated shit. But don't indulge in it. Take it from time to time and know when to stop. Don't do it every day. Don't let it like sour your vision of humanity and of the people you disagree with in general. Because if you truly you're trying to run away from, what is you're hiding from, that's actually making you unhappy in your life, would be my advice. Because I'm projecting how I lived through it, obviously. The reverse is also true where if you do too much self-help, you won't ever actually get to utilize the things you read. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have trouble taking self-help books seriously, which is kind of funny because I guess technically a lot of what I'm ranting about actually falls under like a self-help category, especially today since it was just like a just chatting ranting stream. But Definitely, yeah. Oh, there's this great shit. Can I find nice Pip in the corner? Pip? You mean there? The Oh yeah, picture in picture. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those hardcore ones, like the books, so many fucking self-help books. I think this is fine. Yeah. Yeah, I would need to like move it a little bit like this, at least so it wouldn't be distracting. Yeah, that's better. I'm kind of running out of space on my desk. I could show you. Well, it's kind of a mess. I should show you when I've cleaned it up. Okay. Yeah, and self-help books are great. We collectively as humanity have a lot to teach each other, but you know, there's a paradox with anyone who wants to help you with a problem. If they're making money off of helping you with the problem, then you need some Jordan Peterson self-help. Clean your room, bucko. Yeah. Oh shit, I need to play a meme that okay, I need to open the WhatsApp app and find some memes. But I gotta be careful not to dox people with it. Okay, is it this one? I think it's this one. Pause. Okay, can I... Let me just do a test off stream. See if I can play it for you. Oh, nope, that's not that's not the right clip, sorry. Oh, it's a YouTube link, perfect. Okay, this one's a good one.
You're going to pay for your impulsive idiocy.
Man, fuck you. I'll see you at work.
You're such a horrid creature in your very core that it would be a moral violation for you to propagate.
What the hell do you know? You're just a bumbling dimwit. You're useless. Lay on the couch for 10 years.
Bucko.
What?
That layered bucko at the end fucking kills me. I'll link it to you right away. The bucko, it's amazing. It's so perfect. Here, I posted it in streams.gg, and I'll post it in Twitch chat as well, I guess. There we go. Bucko, more like baka. Hi. Yeah. Alright, that was a good meme. Wait, there was another one. Crap, I should have written it down. Right, we're talking about self-help. Oh yeah, I remember. Crap, I played it once on stream already too. It doesn't matter. I'll find it again. Is it this one? Nope, it's not this one. Jeez. Okay, this one's gonna be hard to find actually. Unless I just search for it directly in YouTube. Okay, let me close this. I'm pretty spooked. For this, it's so easy to like dox people with the WhatsApp app since it shows the phone numbers and stuff, and like their names. Okay. What was it? It was you know what? I'll look for it later. I don't want to bother. This clip is amazing. Bucko. Maybe I should like take out just the bucko from it and use it somewhere. Maybe like as a notification or something. I don't know. All right, that was that. Bucko, yeah, with the emoji B. Oh, hey, we got our our little graph paint memes up here. I forgot about that one. All right, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, self-help. My ex from before my ex, my ex, I guess, used to only read self-help books. But I don't know why I'm saying that. That's irrelevant to anything. It didn't. It just kind of. I thought. I guess. I did think it was a bit weird for like me who reads for my personal enjoyment. Is X before X your great X? That's a good question. I mostly read stuff for my like pleasure, so like fantasy and sci-fi stuff like that. Just flexing that you've been with two cuties, comfy feels. Yeah, humble brag, I guess. I do like reading stuff to learn, but I guess I like focusing on a specific field, and if I'm gonna read to learn. And your X's X would be your grand X. No, that would be your step X. Your X's X. Or your step grand X. that brings a whole new dimension to porn. I think we have we have something here. We could invent a new genre of porn. There's potential in this idea. But yeah, oh yeah, I remember what I was trying. Step X, I'm stuck on under the couch. What I wanted to say is there is a paradox when certain services are supposed to resolve a problem in society or for yourself, you can run into an dishonest incentive where if they actually do successfully resolve the problem they're supposed to resolve, those industries make themselves obsolete. You usually don't see that much on individual levels, but like the classic example is the vermin exterminator who leave a mouse behind, so you call him back 2 weeks later, for example. And obviously that's dishonest. That's very unethical, but it exists. And I wonder how much of that applies to self-help as an issue. So, oh, Dr. K talks about that as well. Oh, I should check that out actually, because I've heard a lot of good about Dr. K, but I've never really watched him. And we recently had a discussion in the streams chat, I remember, about how psychology. Oh yeah, that's why we were talking about it, right? Was it you who yeah, or why the diet industry? But same idea, why dieting doesn't work, because the industry shouldn't grow. Yeah, yeah, and then we compared that to psychology, and I remember we were discussing it and how it was funny that he would make that argument when you could maybe turn that argument around to psychology as well. I was thinking why therapy isn't considered the same. Yeah, and then we went into a discussion on that issue with therapy for sure. And Sign was there too. Actually, Sign hasn't showed up in a while. Hope he's doing well. I guess work's picked up with the new year and stuff. Yeah, definitely it's an issue. Yeah, and then we were talking about like how obviously a lot of mental illnesses and issues are lifelong issues, but the goal should always be for actual treatment, not just coping throughout your whole life. And we discuss like anecdotal evidence of treatment. People weaning themselves off antidepressants and managing to bring their lives back under control. So that is a dangerous thing, and usually, in theory, you'd want to do it with professional help always. But sometimes people have felt the need to do it without. The one example I remember discussing that I do want to publicize on stream, actually, because I find it fascinating. There's been an experimental treatment of a PTSD. Experimental treatment PTSD. I think. Wait, with MDMA? No, that's not the. Oh yeah, was it with ketamine? I think it was with ketamine, not MDMA. Or was it the stellate ganglion block? It wasn't such a memey thing, like a recreational drug, I think. Oh god, I should have bookmarked the. I should have bookmarked the article. Psilocybin. Yeah, I don't think it was an actual drug, if in my memory. It was a drug that that allowed. Okay, it was something like replacement. Well, it wasn't quite replacement. MAPS is the organization running some of those treatments. Okay, I'll look at that. Basically, the gist of it is that it was. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. I'll just finish this and I have to go. Get ready to go out. Maybe I shouldn't put experimental in. PTSD treatment. Well, it has to be like a new one. I don't know. Regardless, it was. Oh, was it this article? Glucocorticoid receptor protein complex. Well, anyways, it was the discovery of a drug that allowed people. You really are melons, Mr. Mouton. You have the same. No, I'm not going clubbing. Okay, in all full disclosure, I'm going on a date. I've been talking with her for a while. I actually thought she had ghosted me. Met her off a dating site and stream it. No shot, Bucko. I've been talking with. I thought she ghosted me because she hadn't. She like left me hanging for a couple weeks. And I was like, okay, shit happens. And then out of the blue, she like contacts me, and we actually were exchanging regularly. And so we were supposed to see each other this week. We were supposed to see each other in 2 days to like hang out, go for a walk, since everything's closed for lockdown and stuff, and leave the camera on but monitor off. No. And then today she was like, well, actually, do you want to come over tonight? So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, so I'll find that exact article for next time. I need to Chud. I need to to do find PTSD new treatment article. I could look it up in my exchanges with my older brother actually, because I remember sending it to him. Anyways, so it's this drug that allows a novel therapy in which basically they've noticed studies have shown that revisiting your old trauma in therapy kind of creates this. That's why I'm thinking of it. It kind of creates this phenomenon we're talking of, where you're dependent on the therapy. Every time you go to therapy, you revisit those very painful memories, and instead of making progress, you're actually like stirring the knife in the wound, to put it in lay terms. At least that's how I understood it. And are you going to get it on? maybe, maybe not. It's our first time meeting, so it's very important that, you know, there's chemistry. If there isn't chemistry, then we're obviously not going to get it on. And, you know, I know that's something someone like you, Melon, has trouble understanding, but consent is very important, okay? Written for me. Thank you, Melon. And, says you, I remember the melon pics. Got me. Are you taking her to the Eiffel Tower? No, she invited me over to her place. Okay, back to my story. I need to finish my story and I need to get ready. I need to leave at like 7 because I need to be over at her place at 8 and it takes like 50 minutes to get there, okay? So that's why I set an alarm at 6:30. It's now 6:35. I've got like 15-20 minutes before I really need to stop. No, I still have time to... I'm not going to go show her your Eiffel Tower. Nice one. I still have time to finish my story. So it's this novel treatment where you... so the issue is when people revisit their... Don't go? Why? When people revisit their traumatic memories, they dredge up all the pain. And that makes the therapy much less efficient, if not inefficient completely. So what this therapy does, in conjunction with a drug, I don't remember which drug. I'd like to find the article again. This drug has been found to inhibit the emotional response for reliving a traumatic experience, and sort of allowing you to rewrite the memory without the pain by reliving it while under the influence of that drug. And so what's fascinating concerning, and now we go back to our earlier discussion, so what's fascinating with that is that apparently we're going to have a treatment, an actual treatment for PTSD, if that works, not a coping mechanism. Hopefully it works on the most people possible, because obviously, well, yeah, also then the issue is who like falls through the cracks of the treatment or needs like us to discover some other alternative treatment and so on and so forth. But conceptually, that seems very elegant and promising and quite fascinating. I'm always very fascinated with how drugs influence our minds and memories and thought process. It's a very fascinating subject. In case you guys are curious about that, let me give you one last thing before I go. There is a site called erowid.org. It's documenting the complex relationship between humans and psychoactives. Okay, disclaimer, there is a lot of information on this site that needs to be used in responsible ways. For example, you can find copies of Dr. Shulgin's seminal works on synthesizing drugs that ever go to deoxy.org? Maybe, that kind of rings a bell, but I don't remember. Oh yeah, it doesn't exist anymore when it was working. It rings a bell, but I don't remember much about it. But erowid.org is a fascinating site because you can... It's basically like a judgment-free Wikipedia on drugs, which makes it an amazing resource for, well, staying healthy in your relationship to drugs. You can read, you can click on any drug and have like many different descriptions, warnings. You can read through people's experiences. Very detailed, like more or less detailed stories of their experiences with them. Sometimes the experiences of a specific trip. Sometimes their story of their lifetime addiction. If you want to learn about drugs, this is a great website. Just please use it responsibly. Understand that there are dangers associated with those. Like I said, I don't know where it is. Somewhere on this website are the PDFs for Shulgin's books. Do not, absolutely do not try to reproduce any of Shulgin's experiments if you are not a professional chemist, understanding exactly what you're doing. there is notably a case where some chemistry students thought they could synthesize heroin, like an opiate analog from Shulgin's books. And the thing is, Shulgin was a PhD chemistry guy. He knew what the fuck he was doing. So when he writes down a recipe, he doesn't write down, he says like this thing needs to be cooked at 90 degrees. It needs to be cooked at 90 degrees, and he's not going to write down if the transformation becomes wrong at 92 degrees, 95 degrees, 96 degrees. He doesn't care. He like puts the right temperature for the right chemical transformation. So what those kids didn't know is that the specific a lot of recipes are a bit permissive on temperature. You have some leeway. What those kids didn't know is that the specific recipe they were doing had to be extremely precisely, strictly followed. The leeway was something like half a degree Celsius or like 1 degree Celsius. They missed it. They created a completely unknown compound. Then they shot up this compound or ate it. I don't remember how they consumed it, but they consumed that new compound that had never been consumed by a human being before. And what they discovered was a compound that makes you black out. Well, it makes you like have a bad trip, then you black out. And when you wake up, you have Parkinson's. So like, well, it was like 3 or 5 20-ish-year-old kids gave themselves Parkinson's. At least the only positive thing coming out of this is that their discovery of this compound and the terrible effect it has on our brains is a wonderful thing for science. It is an actual boon for Parkinson's research, and their sad experiment is like now used in Parkinson's research, but it's still not. It's still, so yeah, like, just be careful, okay? We need more stupid students in the face of banned human testing. I will not pronounce on that. Of course that statement would come from a German, wouldn't it? Gehirnchirurg. In a video game. I'm joking. Sorry, Twitch. Please don't bully me. All right. Yeah, I think we've gone through a bunch of fun subjects, and now I have to go do things IRL. I love you all. Stay safe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting with me. It was a lot of fun, and see you tomorrow.